the eye of the observer, capable of seeing through the abilities of two geniuses, yet completely ineffective against this man. This gave the association deputy director quite a shock, for neither the association president nor the guild master had ever encountered such a situation. He was originally just an ordinary porter. In this era filled with rampaging monsters, humans who hadn't awakened any abilities were relegated to such roles. Since the appearance of the Abyss, countless monsters have invaded the human realm. To resist the monster invasion, humans began awakening special abilities. With this power alone, they repelled countless monsters and explored the Abyss. As a result, the level of awakened ability became the standard for judging an individual. As long as your level is high enough, you can live a good and comfortable life. But none of this had anything to do with Taehyun Kim. For at 35 years old, he couldn't even open his status window. At that moment, just after he had collected the spoils dropped by monsters, he discovered himself surrounded by corpses. "Now only you remain," the giant monster before him whispered softly. 3 seconds rank monster, Asmodeus. Just as Taehyun Kim was about to attack it, he was incapacitated with an arm severed by a casual wave of its hand. Then a purple light instantly pierced through his skull. In an instant, past memories flashed before his eyes. His life had been filled with misfortune. Parents dead in a car accident, himself bullied for failing to awaken abilities. He was unquestionably a failure, but he wasn't willing to die so pathetically. At the moment his blood dripped down. He fulfilled the conditions for awakening an ability. The next second, a door slowly appeared before him. Then a white figure came into view. Meanwhile, the monster seemed frozen in time. As Taehyun Kim stood confused, the figure began to explain. He called himself the king and was summoned here by the door Taehyun Kim had opened. From now on, he would bestow upon Taehyun Kim the king's omnipotence. He had chosen Taehyun Kim for his strong will and perseverance. The next moment, a white light flashed before Taehyun Kim could react. The figure murmured, "One day you will know everything. We will definitely meet again," accompanied by a flash of red light. When he opened his eyes again, he was greeted by a heavy slap. While he was still trying to figure out what was happening, a status window beside him caught his attention. Was it 16 years ago now? He couldn't help but burst into laughter. The next second, he threw a heavy punch at the short-haired man, sending him flying dozens of meters away. Since he could see the status window, it meant, "Now I too am an awakened." Meanwhile, 2 people nearby were swinging their fists at him. He sent them flying with just 1 punch and 1 kick. After all, throughout these 35 years, he had been constantly training his body and had mastered information about the Abyss, various monsters, and combat techniques. So against these untrained guys, he had victory in the bag. In no time, he had the 2 of them thoroughly subdued. But just then, Hyoksu was slowly getting to his feet. He activated his C-rank ability, Stone Skin, which turns his skin into hard stone. The next second, he threw a punch straight at Taehyun Kim's face. Taehyun Kim barely dodged to the side, but then Hyoksu leaped into the air and came down hard on the ground, but hit nothing. Meanwhile, Taehyun Kim instantly appeared behind him and threw a heavy punch at his face, only to be blocked by his stone skin. In Taehyun Kim's moment of surprise, Hyoksu delivered a powerful punch that sent Taehyun Kim flying dozens of meters. Taehyun Kim was now on the brink of death. "You're really too weak. Are you going to run away now, or do you want to use a skill to struggle a bit more?" For all awakened ones, skills and level are crucial. F rank is about the same as ordinary people. If you're S rank, you can be called a monster-like existence, because their physical abilities and skills increase exponentially. What he possessed was not only a skill never seen before, but also the lowest F rank. Though he had no chance against Hyoksu with his C rank ability, he could feel that he would definitely win. Facing Taehyun Kim slowly getting to his feet, Hyoksu was shocked. Did this guy really awaken? Is this gluttony? He could feel magical power flowing within his body. The next second, Hyoksu swung his fist and fiercely attacked him. Taehyun Kim simply raised his right hand, and 2 energies collided. Then the stone on Hyoksu's body began to slowly dissipate. As Taehyun Kim exerted force, in an instant, Hyoksu's ability was completely devoured. This should end it now. Then a prompt appeared. Gluttony is finished. Gluttony result. Self-level increased to 1. And added a new skill, Stone Skin. After dealing with the 3, the scene changed, and he was sending the 3 to the school infirmary. After a brief treatment, he turned and left. Even he hadn't expected that he would awaken talent and defeat Hyoksu. Talent, gluttony, the level that couldn't be improved even with a lifetime of training in his previous life, now improved through a single battle. Although it was the lowest F rank, its power far exceeded C rank, and it could even steal others' talents. He was curious why the king would give him such power, and what was the reason for his return. But for now, the most important thing was to figure out the specific capabilities of gluttony. Since the death of his parents, he had been living with his uncle. He was now planning to collect information about this type of talent. But what he saw made him freeze. A group of guys were standing in front of him. It was Jae-young. But shouldn't you be at school? Looking at the scattered paper boxes on the ground, Taehyun Kim instantly understood everything. This guy was actually hanging out with a bunch of thugs, the yellow-haired one said. If you don't want to get beaten up, pretend nothing happened. The next second, Taehyun Kim threw a punch at him. While everyone was stunned, Taehyun Kim decisively raised his right hand to use the gluttony skill on him. But a prompt indicated it couldn't be used. Meanwhile, the yellow-haired one sent him flying with a straight punch. Then 3 people simultaneously activated their abilities. The next second, 3 energy blasts headed straight for Taehyun Kim, hitting him directly. A mere non-awakened dares to be so insolent. But at that moment, the gluttony skills successfully activated. Confirmed abilities: bind, poison, bleed. He had repelled the attack with an incredible power. Can he even nullify abilities? Then he knocked the attacker to the ground with one punch. Although he didn't know what happened, he could confirm that gluttony was indeed powerful. In no time, Taehyun Kim had them thoroughly convinced, and he learned 2 things from this. First, only awakened ones have a status window. Though he had recorded detailed information about awakened ones, not everything would be displayed. Second, gluttony is different from other skills. Mana isn't the only factor affecting the skill. Moreover, gluttony seems to have a passive effect. It can nullify status-altering type abilities. Whether these conjectures are correct would need to be confirmed through future tests. Meanwhile, his cousin suddenly knelt before him, expressing his regret for his actions and deciding to follow Taehyun Kim's footsteps from now on. This took Taehyun Kim by surprise, and there was still an important event to happen today, so Taehyun Kim immediately forgave his cousin. Then come with me to do something. Elsewhere, at a restricted area, people were showing shocked expressions. A gate break phenomenon was occurring. Gate break, when a passage connecting to the abyss suddenly opens, causing a large number of monsters to invade the human realm. It had been 10 years since the last such occurrence. Though the 2 were clearly panicking, he signaled them not to worry, because his talent was a B-rank barrier, and this gate break was C rank. That meant the highest monster level would only be C, even if something unexpected happened. For them with B-rank talents, it was a completely controllable situation. Meanwhile, the 2 were rushing toward the restricted area, but only Taehyun Kim knew deeply that this gate break wasn't simply C rank. Elsewhere, the commander noticed something wasn't right. How could these C-rank monsters break through a B-rank barrier? Just then, a large number of giant monsters suddenly poured in from the gate break. Clearly, the B-rank barrier couldn't stop their advance. A-rank monster, giant ogre. Before they could react, they were instantly consumed by a violent flame. Meanwhile, the cousin was curious how Taehyun Kim knew the gate break level would rise. To conceal his identity as a returner, Taehyun Kim told him it was intuition. Just then, a large group of monsters were frantically pouring towards the crowd. Remember what I asked you to do? Now is the best time. But what about you? Of course I'll handle them. Elsewhere, the higher-ups received notification that the current gate break had risen to a rank, and now only one A-rank awakened one remained to resolve this. A rank talent, the Sword of Light, Hyunsu An. Scene change, Taehyun Kim was now blocking the monster attack. With just his gluttony talent, he quickly eradicated all surrounding monsters. He discovered that the activation of gluttony seemed related to fatigue value. When fatigue exceeded 70, the skill couldn't be activated. Most skills are activated based on mana, but this doesn't mean you only need to worry about mana. There's also fatigue. It increases when using skills. Higher fatigue leads to decreased skill power and loss of physical strength. But surprisingly, he could recover mana by absorbing dead monsters. And more importantly, his level had now reached D rank, with both gluttony and stone skin upgraded to D rank. The more he used gluttony, the stronger he became. At this rate, Taehyun Kim would eventually become the strongest in the world. Just as he was about to head towards his cousin, a huge monster descended from the sky. As Hyunsu An raised his Sword of Light, the next second he swung it and instantly killed the monster. Surprisingly, he eliminated the A-rank monster so easily. It seems the hero who resolved the gatebreak event before his return was him. The Sword of Light, Hyunsu An, was as formidable as ever. But why was he here? Before Taehyun Kim's return, he should have had a fierce battle with Giant Ogre at the other end of the city. Meanwhile, a skill-sensing prompt appeared. The next second, a blade pierced through Hyunsu An's chest. He was extremely shocked. Finally caught you, Hyunsu An. Elsewhere, the cousin looked at the teacher in the infirmary, deep in thought. His task was to ensure Na Young Choi's safety. After all, in his previous life, she was killed by monsters during the rescue process. so the cousin had to use his sleep skill to make her fall asleep, then move her to a safe place. As for the rest, he would handle it. And now he was curious why Taehyung Kim knew all this. Could he have awakened a talent to foresee the future? Scene change, faced with what was happening before his eyes. Even Taehyung Kim was extremely shocked. Hyun Soo-an shouted at him, "Who exactly are you?" As expected of an A-rank. B-rank villain Sang-do-han, talent B-rank stealth. In this world, awakened ones involved in crimes are called malevolents, and among them, Sang-do-han is an extremely dangerous figure. But before his return, these two had never battled. Has the future changed because of my return? Meanwhile, Hyun Soo-an immediately raised his sword of light to strike at him. But the next second, a violent tremor came. Then an incredibly huge monster emerged from underground. It threw a punch at everyone. Seeing the situation change, Sang-do-han turned his attention to Taehyung Kim. "I didn't expect there to be an audience here. This is quite interesting." "Then die!" As Sang-do-han attacked him, he calmly used stone skin for defense, then kicked him flying. "B-rank malevolent Sang-do-han. You must be the notorious one they talk about. I'm pleased to meet you." Then the two engaged in a battle of attack and defense. But clearly, the enemy's blade couldn't penetrate Taehyung Kim's stone skin. Though he didn't know why Taehyung Kim knew him, if Taehyung Kim was too confident, he would be making a big mistake. Because unexpected things always happen. The next second, he used his stealth skill. Taehyung Kim could only swing his fists left and right for defense. But he still found a gap. Then a slash came down, cutting his arm. Guys like you, we've hunted countless. Those who think they have invincible skills always try to run when their weaknesses are exposed. One last piece of advice before you die. Every skill has weaknesses. After a barrage of attacks, there was little stone left on Taehyung Kim's body. It seemed stone skin couldn't block all attacks. Under continuous attacks, stone skin became fragile. Did this guy figure it out early? But as expected, Taehyung Kim's physical abilities were indeed extraordinary for a D-rank. He could even engage in hand-to-hand combat with a B-rank. Then it's time to end the test. Meanwhile, the enemy fiercely attacked him. "There's a reason I fought you, because I want to steal your skill." The next second, he activated his stealth skill and circled around Taehyung Kim. Taehyung Kim just slightly raised his left hand. "Didn't you say every skill has a weakness?" After using gluttony multiple times, he discovered this problem. Surprisingly, no monster could escape gluttony. In other words, no matter where you run, you can't hide from gluttony. The next second, the enemy was devoured by him. Meanwhile, Hyun Soo-an was lying on the ground, dying. Against the giant's attack, he was powerless. At this crucial moment, Taehyung Kim instantly appeared and saved him. "Lying down so soon? You've got it too easy." Scene change. Taehyung Kim brought his cousin back home. They were very concerned about the safety of the two. After all, such dangerous things had happened. Meanwhile, notifications were issued worldwide. The gatebreak phenomenon had been completely resolved, and those heroes had all received timely treatment. Faced with the incoming interviews, Hyun Soo-an painfully stated that another hero defeated the giant. However, since the body of the giant ogre wasn't found, people were still worried. Looking at the phone with no mention of him at all, Taehyung Kim finally breathed a sigh of relief. Then it's time to enter the next phase. Although he now had 3 skills, at his current level, it would be difficult to use all 3 simultaneously. Not only would mana be quickly depleted, but fatigue would also easily reach its limit. Therefore, the best solution was potions. Potions that could restore mana and reduce fatigue. But potions were extremely expensive, and exploring dungeons required permission. For this, Taehyung Kim had only one choice, which was to explore dungeons yet to be discovered. B-rank monster, Spider Sisters. If it's just simple B-rank monsters, he would need to absorb hundreds to level up. The next second, they launched an attack at Taehyung Kim. Faced with a huge spider silk ball, Taehyung Kim calmly used gluttony to defend. Then came the moment to absorb monsters. With Taehyung Kim's absorption, he gained another new skill, paralysis. Elsewhere, the scene shifted to the player association. Players can explore dungeons, clear dungeons, awakened ones who are authorized to use skills to achieve goals. Currently, each country has 5 major forces, including the strongest 4 guilds. The battle-focused Unbroken, the Battle Guild. The alchemy-focused Chemist, the Crafting Guild. The magic-focused Magicians, the Magic Guild. The information-gathering Nightwalker, the Information Guild. And the institution recognized by all players, including the 4 guilds, H Country Player Association. And those before him were Nightwalker's Guildmaster and S-rank player Ah Yong-yu, President of the Player Association, and S-rank player Jin Hui-ji. But currently, the most troublesome was the Malignant Guild. Members of the Malignant Guild all wore rings with 3 skulls. They looted and killed everywhere. and recently they had targeted players. But you didn't call me here for this, did you? Of course not. There's something I'd like to hear your opinion on. I remember you passed the player test when you were 19. So, do you think a high school student could defeat those monsters? Meanwhile, Taeyeon Kim was contacting the Alchemy Guild because he wanted to purchase some potions. Shortly after the gatebreak incident, the school quickly reopened. During this period, Taeyeon Kim had been constantly improving his physical fitness through training and clearing dungeons to accumulate magic stones, legendary magic stones, a necessary product for making expensive potions. With magic stones accumulated over many days, Taeyeon Kim successfully became a very important person of the crafting guild. Meanwhile, after days of training, all of Taeyeon Kim's skills had been upgraded to C rank. Even his own level had been upgraded to C. But even so, he still had a long way to go. Now all classmates were shocked. After all, defeating Hyoksu and others would cause big problems. Just then, a group of people slowly approached Taeyeon Kim. The newcomer was the boss of Hyoksu and others. S-rank awakened Jongjae Lee, the third-generation heir of the Taesan group. He once sponsored Taesan Academy and was also the boss of various school bullies. He was also the mastermind who instigated Hyoksu and others to bully Taeyeon Kim. It's this guy. But what brings you here, you bastard? Hearing this, his followers immediately cursed loudly. But the next second, a fist sent him flying. You don't get to speak here. Then he pointed at Taeyeon Kim. I know you defeated Hyoksu, but don't get too arrogant. You should clearly know who stands before you. So this is the power of an S-rank awakened. Indeed extraordinary. And now Taeyeon Kim was curious. How would he respond to gluttony? Just then, a voice stopped him. It was Ayong Lim. She was the Academy's recognized S-rank genius with high knowledge and status. In the future, she would become a 2 seconds rank player. But she had a bad flaw, which was her extremely stubborn personality. Once she made up her mind, it couldn't be changed. Faced with Ayong Lim's intervention, Jongjae Lee showed some dissatisfaction. Just as the two were about to fight in the classroom, the next second Jongjae Lee sensibly left. But then, he suddenly attacked Ayong Lim. Just as the two were about to battle, the broadcast announced the Player Association would hold a special lecture in the hall, requesting all students to immediately gather in the hall. It's the Player Association? After a moment's thought, Jongjae Lee decided to head to the hall first. Now you should be safe, Taeyeon Kim. Why are you still standing there? Didn't you hear we need to gather in the hall? Hearing this, Ayong Lim froze. Scene change, everyone was discussing what the theme of this lecture would be. Meanwhile, the middle-aged man on stage began his self-introduction. I am Tae-Uk Go, and I am the Deputy Department Head of Human Resources at the Player Association. He came here for only 2 reasons. First, to provide educational training for the gatebreak phenomenon. Second, to inform them about changes to the Player Association test. As for what kind of future each country Player Association would have, it was in the hands of these newcomers. After the director announced that the player exam had been changed, everyone started discussing. Then the director explained this move. Due to frequent gatebreak incidents recently, the number of dungeons and monsters had rapidly increased. The Player Association now faced a shortage of manpower, so from today, high school students would be allowed to join the Player Association. Hearing this, everyone was very shocked. They would select the best talents based on comprehensive data. Taeyeon Kim immediately saw through his lie. Although this exam indeed allowed high school students to participate, the selection had already begun. That was through Tae-Uk Go's own skill, the eye of the observer, which could see everyone's ability values. Even when focusing, it could see others' status window. The director was very satisfied with this. Because the data here was much better than elsewhere, there were many who could become players. But what surprised him most were the 2 people before him. Although he had received a recommendation list from Nightwalker, for an awakened one without training to have such high values, this was truly a treasure found. Just then, Jongjae Lee raised his opinion. Since it was about the player exam, there was someone who shouldn't be here. Only awakened ones could participate in the player exam. That meant non-awakened ones like him had no right to be here. Strength isn't everything for a player. Awakening level, the ability to handle various emergencies, and extensive knowledge about the abyss. To become a qualified player, various abilities need to be tested, but all these exams are premised on being an awakened one. For non-awakened ones, this is like rubbing salt in the wound. Taeyeon Kim knew well that everything Jongjae Lee did was just to confirm whether he had awakened an ability. Although Ayong Lim wanted to stop his behavior, thinking that Taeyeon Kim wouldn't appreciate it, she gave up the idea. Faced with the aggressive Jongjae Lee, Taeyeon Kim showed no concern, as he had already thought of a countermeasure. It's not necessary to let him see with his own eyes to get the qualification to participate in the exam. The director was surprised. He didn't expect an S-rank awakened to bully a weak person. But when he used the eye of the observer on Taehyun Kim, he was shocked, because he couldn't see through Taehyun Kim's ability values. Just then Taehyun Kim said, "If non-awakened ones don't need to participate, then I choose to leave here voluntarily." The director was still very shocked. Neither the association president nor guildmaster Ah Young-yu had ever had this happen to them, yet it occurred with this kid. Watching Taehyun Kim walk further away, the director couldn't see through his values no matter what. With Taehyun Kim's contemptuous smile, the values were confirmed, but it made him freeze on the spot, because his value was as high as 5,096. Scene change. Taehyun Kim was searching for clues about the king. However, Jong Jae-lee's minions found him and indicated he should come along. "What if I refuse? You have an aunt who runs a restaurant, right?" Hearing this, Taehyun Kim's eyes instantly sharpened. "If you don't obey, you'll drag others down." The next second, a loud crash was heard. The library instantly became a mess. "I'll ask you one last time. Where is Jong Jae-lee?" After learning the location of Jong Jae-lee, at this moment, Taehyun Kim arrives at an indoor facility, while the bald bodyguard beside him appears extremely surprised, because from the beginning, he had been using his abnormal state skill, but it had no effect on Taehyun Kim. And this level of resistance requires at least an A-rank awakener. Sure enough, just as Jong Jae-lee had guessed, he had awakened his abilities. The reason Jong Jae-lee called him here was actually to recruit him to join his faction. He plans to establish his own guild after graduation. For this, he needs a large number of excellent talents, not third-rate ones like Hyuk-soo-bae, but someone like you. He then gestured to Taehyun Kim, suggesting they forget about past unpleasantness and become his loyal subordinate. That way, you and your family will live a good life. But Taehyun Kim sneered at this. Neither wealth nor fame was what he wanted, and you will pay a terrible price for crossing the line. Seeing that Taehyun Kim was very uncooperative, Jong Jae-lee immediately unleashed a fierce flame. At the same time, the bodyguard nearby quickly built a barrier. This way, people outside wouldn't notice the commotion inside. Then both sides launched particularly fierce attacks, as they both delivered full power strikes. The next second, powerful forces instantly separated them. Before Taehyun Kim could react, he was knocked down by Jong Jae-lee's whip kick. In an instant, blood spurted from his mouth. "Now you finally know your place?" Faced with everything before him, the bald bodyguard fell into deep thought. That kid should be an A-rank awakener with body enhancement skills. He possesses strong combat ability and mental power. Ordinary people wouldn't be his match. But unfortunately, today he met him. The S-rank awakener known as the Untalent Crystal, Jong Jae-lee. Taehyun Kim could never defeat him. But just then, the bodyguard noticed something unusual, because Taehyun Kim gradually matched Jong Jae-lee's speed, and even landed a punch directly on Jong Jae-lee's face, sending him flying dozens of meters away. Even the bodyguard found it hard to believe that the young master was being beaten so helplessly. At this point, Jong Jae-lee also realized something was wrong, because his body couldn't move at all. What's going on? Could it be that his skill isn't combat enhancement? It seems to have finally taken effect. Originally, Taehyun Kim had gained 3 skills through gluttony, stone skin, stealth, and paralysis. But initially, he didn't use all his skills. After all, C-rank paralysis couldn't penetrate an S-rank awakener's resistance, and the flame attacks had a wide range, so he couldn't use stealth. Finally, gluttony, as his trump card, couldn't be used carelessly. So he chose the safest method, which was to increase the paralysis toxin on Jong Jae-lee through close combat. By continuously attacking and letting the toxin seep in, even S-rank awakeners couldn't resist, eventually creating a situation where the paralysis toxin couldn't be resisted. Watching Taehyun Kim slowly approach, the bodyguard was utterly shocked. This guy is simply a genius, actually overcoming the level difference through head-on combat. However, the battle wasn't over yet. Jong Jae-lee murmured, "I admit you're indeed strong, but I won't be defeated by someone like you." Then he pulled out a magic stone. The next second, he crushed it on the spot. A fire giant suddenly appeared before Taehyun Kim. "Now I'm getting serious." Faced with such a massive fire giant, Taehyun Kim could only constantly dodge. As the giant's fiery fist came at him, Taehyun Kim leaped into the air, then swung his fist to attack. But the giant immediately spat out a huge fireball. The next second, 2 powerful forces collided. However, the flame's power was slightly superior. The stone skin was instantly shattered. Followed by a loud noise, Taehyun Kim was blasted dozens of meters away. Meanwhile, the bodyguard could see at a glance that this was the young master's S-rank skill, Heart of Flame. But at the young master's current level, he couldn't unleash the skill's true power. and he suddenly remembered the magic stone the young master had just used. A mana amplification stone. This item was refined from monster hearts. It has the ability to instantly boost magic power. Although this thing allows him to use true S-rank skills, due to the overwhelming magical power, one misstep could lead to self-destruction. However, Zhang Li ignored the bodyguard's warning. He even used a fire arrow to silence him. After all, a mere bodyguard had no right to command him. Just then, Taehyun Kim had barely gotten to his feet when he suffered a devastating blow from the fire fist. Looking at Taehyun Kim lying motionless, Zhang Li had fallen into a frenzy. Seeing this situation, the bodyguard immediately rushed toward Taehyun Kim and signaled that if he was still alive, he should leave quickly. But unexpectedly, the response was a heavy punch. The battle isn't over, how could I possibly run away? Then he immediately drank a bunch of recovery potions, indeed worthy of being recognized by me as an S-rank awakener. If that's the case, I'll have to get serious too. Meanwhile, Director Tae Go reported the school's situation to President Jinhui Ji. He appeared very shocked. Are these values all real? Of course, Zhang Li is 1,900, Ayong Lim is 2,300. They're both S-rank awakeners. Without training, they're already comparable to A-rank players. This level is equivalent to J Country's the Saint level. The Saint, one of J Country's main players. A monster whose initial awakening data exceeded 2,500. And someone like Taehyun Kim is simply a monster among monsters. Could it be his misconception? Either way, Director Tae Go needed to confirm personally. Meanwhile, the bald bodyguard was looking on in disbelief, because Taehyun Kim was continuously absorbing Zhang Li's flames. Even Zhang Li couldn't believe what was happening before him. He actually lost to someone like Taehyun Kim, and he expressed his dissatisfaction very reluctantly, saying he was the heir to the Taesan group, an S-rank awakener. Faced with Zhang Li's all-out attack, Taehyun Kim seemed completely unconcerned. What does your identity have to do with me? I am Taehyun Kim, possessor of the king's power. After Taehyun Kim used king's power, countless red energies instantly engulfed Zhang Li. Accompanied by a loud explosion, the gymnasium instantly turned into a complete mess, and Zhang Li collapsed helplessly on the ground. But Taehyun Kim was quite surprised. A rank player, Hondo Seol. Taehyun Kim didn't expect that when he used his gluttony skill, Hondo Seol could forcibly pull Zhang Li out. But fortunately, Taehyun Kim had acquired his skill. Just then, the bodyguard stated that Zhang Li was the heir to the Taesan group, and continuing like this would cause big problems. But Taehyun Kim remained very calm. Do you think I'm the kind of person who's afraid of causing trouble? However, he didn't plan to kill Zhang Li, but something must be exchanged for his life. Since he's the heir to the Taesan group, his life is worth at least 10 billion. Meanwhile, the loud noise from the gymnasium caught everyone's attention. Ayong Lim immediately recognized that the magic power in flames were Zhang Li's abilities. Could he be fighting with Taehyun Kim? Then she hurriedly ran towards the gymnasium. At this moment she deeply regretted. She should have stopped Zhang Li's actions back then. Please, Taehyun Kim, be safe. Scene change. Ayong Lim now looks utterly incredulous. You came just in time. I was just looking for someone to move him to the infirmary. As she was about to ask what had happened, Taehyun Kim suggested he might have fallen down the stairs, and instructed her not to let anyone know he had been there. Then he turned and left. Elsewhere, Taehyun Kim finally breathed a sigh of relief. At least everything had been resolved. But what is this thing? Charm value increased by 5 points. New skill, Heart of the Sovereign, C rank. Isn't charm an attribute exclusive to entertainers? Why did it appear after consuming Zhang Li, and not Heart of Flame? Heart of the Sovereign, able to enhance team members' abilities. Did Zhang Li have such a skill? But this is amazing. This kind of skill is extremely rare. A skill level that can affect the entire team, and it can be combined with all skills. Never thought I'd encounter something so good. Just then, several cars suddenly stopped in front of Taehyun Kim. The arrival was Director Tae Go from the Player Association. Although he had many questions for Taehyun Kim, what he was most curious about now was, what exactly did you do in the gymnasium just now? Meanwhile, the bald bodyguard reported everything to the president of the Taesan group. Injured my son and wants me to buy his life? That's quite interesting. Then the president agreed to Taehyun Kim's request. But since things had developed to this point, I also need to regain my dignity. With a snap of his fingers, 2 figures suddenly appeared before him. The bodyguard was greatly alarmed, but the opponent is just a child. Shut up, I hate useless people. This person is the president of the Taesan group, S-rank player, Jong-Soo Lee. Elsewhere, facing the director's question, Taehyun Kim appeared very confused. Was he referring to the commotion in the gymnasium just now, or what happened in the lecture hall earlier? But he probably wouldn't come looking for me over such a small matter. So Taehyun Kim tentatively asked, "Are you referring to the explosion that just happened?" The director denied this. Other departments will handle such small matters. Hearing this, Taehyun Kim immediately became confident. Then he straightforwardly said, "Since you've come to find me, it must be to give me an invitation for the player exam, right? Why are you so certain?" Because the answer is already obvious, isn't it? After Taehyun Kim displayed his full power, everyone stood stunned. Because his value was even higher than before. This meant that the previous values were also real. Who exactly is this guy? Scene change. Taehyun Kim told his cousin about participating in the player exam. Hearing this, he was immediately stunned. To get back to the point, the Taesan group should resolve what happened in the gymnasium, thus reducing Tae-Yuke-go's suspicion of Taehyun Kim. Now he should prepare well for the player exam a month later. Just then, a phone call caught his attention. Meanwhile, two people were furtively watching Taehyun Kim's home. They were puzzled why the association's players would protect a high school student. It seems he should be a candidate participating in this exam. The arrivers were the assassin duo known as the Black and White Brothers. Black with stealth and strengthening abilities, White with stealth skill, and next, he would let Taehyun Kim know what a true awakener is. Just then, a muffled sound came from behind. "Damn it, who are you?" But the response was an attack. "I am the high school student you mentioned several hours earlier." The bodyguard was shocked after hearing Taehyun Kim's conditions. After all, 10 billion wasn't a small matter he could decide casually. Of course, Taehyun Kim knew this. He just hoped the bodyguard could try his best to accomplish this. And to prevent the bodyguard from betraying him, he required the bodyguard to wear this thing. Awakener's Covenant, a contract method made through Awakener's magic power. Violating it would result in eternal punishment. Besides the 10 billion just now, the bodyguard also needed to handle the gymnasium incident as best he could. If the other party wanted revenge, he must inform in advance. And Taehyun Kim learned about the assassin's arrival through the bodyguard's report. Just then, facing the enemy's fierce attack, Taehyun Kim dodged with ease. The next second, Taehyun Kim saw his chance and threw a powerful punch, but it was easily avoided. Then he slammed down hard toward Taehyun Kim, but missed. While he was momentarily stunned, Taehyun Kim had already instantly appeared above his head. "It seems apart from stealth you don't have any other abilities." Elsewhere, Nightwalker was discussing the player exam with the association president, and he heard something interesting. Apparently, Director Tae-Yuke-go left all the S-rank awakeners behind to personally contact a child. Aren't you curious about how strong he must be to make the director take action personally? Meanwhile, the two had been thoroughly subdued by Taehyun Kim, but he stared at the red light in his hand, lost in thought. Due to body overload, gluttony cannot be used. A moment later, Taehyun Kim notified the director to come for cleanup. "But do you know who attacked you?" He acted as if he didn't know after all. Even if he told them, they couldn't resolve the matter. "Has the list of participants been leaked? Looks like we need to notify others to strengthen protective measures." And what worried Taehyun Kim most was the inability to use gluttony. It seems he still needs to improve his ability values. But the method to improve ability values is either through consuming monsters to increase awakening level, or through consuming awakeners to improve awakening level, but both require using the gluttony skill. Damn, is there only one way left? At this moment he turned and went to the country's best gym. But this isn't a place just anyone can casually enter. Faced with the woman's questioning, Taehyun Kim immediately took out the only black card he had, and she immediately recognized it as the Alchemist's VIP card, one of the 4 major guilds. Why would someone like him possess such a thing? And if they rashly let them in, it might cause major problems. Just then, a voice called out to them. The arrival was a B-rank fitness instructor from the gym, known as the Strongest Steel, Gangchol Chogang. He was frantically showing off his muscles. However, Taehyun Kim paid no attention to him. This provoked his displeasure. "Are you stronger than me? If you don't believe it, why not make a bet with me? The loser covers the gym's membership fee for a year." Hearing this, he immediately agreed. Scene changed, the two put on virtual equipment. This is a virtual training project, Virtual Porter. It's a replica of the Abyss. Participants need to carry the heaviest luggage, while defeating B-rank monsters and reaching the final destination in the shortest time. This is usually the most popular competition method in the gym. Meanwhile, the Strongest Steel began action first, faced with the huge monster before him. With just one punch, he killed the monster on the spot, and the weight he carried exceeded Taehyun Kim's imagination. If this continued, the gym's one-year membership fee would be easily attained. But just then, a bright light caught his attention. The next second, a figure flashed by. Taeyeon Kim instantly turned the situation around. Faced with the monsters coming at him, he still appeared very composed. As he delivered a full-power strike, all the monsters instantly vanished. This left the strongest steel dumbfounded. A moment later, the strongest steel finally reached the destination. At this moment, Taeyeon Kim muttered, "This was a good match, but I hope you can keep your promise." Scene change. Time quickly arrived at the day of the player exam, and talented individuals of all different age groups from around the country came here. Among the most notable awakeners were the nearly invincible in close combat, A-rank Iron Fist, Jong-uk Hong, who is said to be unbeatable in hand-to-hand combat. A talented individual with excellent combat abilities, A-rank Druid, Gil-san Lee, whose excellent combat intuition makes him a threat even to S-ranks. Known as the unmatched god of thunder, S-rank, Yeonbok Shin, the man said to outmatch everyone. And the candidate with the highest awakening data in this exam, the Saint-level rising star, S-rank, Ayong Lim, etc. Many other talented individuals were participating in this exam. Just then, a newcomer was complaining about the interview not going well. Psy Economy rookie reporter, Reporter Kim. If she missed this interview, she would lose this hard-earned job. As she was at a loss about what to do, Taeyeon Kim slowly appeared in her vision. Damn, with so many people, how can participants get in? This is really troublesome. So Reporter Kim pulled Taeyeon Kim aside for an interview. After completing the interview, Taeyeon Kim hurriedly rushed to the exam venue, and the venue was particularly lively with crowds of people. Just then, Ayong Lim wore a surprised expression, because she hadn't expected to encounter Taeyeon Kim here, and he seemed to have undergone certain changes, to which Taeyeon Kim replied that he had just exercised a little. Although Ayong Lim had heard that Taeyeon Kim had awakened his abilities, in just 1 month, his changes were surprisingly significant. Just as she wanted to ask what exactly happened in the gymnasium last time, a broadcast sounded, "Young people shouldering the future, welcome. Here we will select those suitable to become players from among the awakeners. The rule of the first exam is collection. Everyone has a number tag on their chest. Those who lose their numbers will be immediately eliminated, and those with 5 number tags will stand out. The time limit is 1 hour." The next second, a tremor came through the venue, and the entire competition field underwent earth-shattering changes. The exam allows all means, but no lethal harm. Now the exam officially begins, and everyone had already decided on their first target. That was the S-rank awakener, Ayong Lim. But clearly they underestimated her strength. With just 1 strike, everyone was instantly knocked to the ground. Even the examiners watching on the screen marveled at this. As expected of the Saint-level rising star, her strength is truly extraordinary. But other candidates were all better than last year's, and among them, the most anticipated, was the S-rank awakener known as the unmatched god of thunder, Yeonbok Shin. Because 20 minutes of the exam had passed, yet still no one could get near him. As people were discussing who between Ayong Lim and him was superior, the director was watching Taeyeon Kim's movements. After all, he had shown such amazing data. If it were him, he would certainly handle this exam. Show your full strength, Taeyeon Kim. However, he was startled by the scene before him, because Taeyeon Kim was fighting back and forth with A-rank awakener Jong-uk Hong. Did I misjudge? Taeyeon Kim is actually being suppressed by an A-rank awakener, and he hasn't dodged his attacks even once. But he soon understood Taeyeon Kim's approach. Meanwhile, the two were fighting intensely. After enduring Jong-uk Hong's attacks one after another, he couldn't help but ask Taeyeon Kim, "Stone skin is inherently inferior to steel, and you deliberately keep taking hits. What exactly are you planning?" Just then, Taeyeon Kim suddenly erupted with magical power. It seems taking hits was useful after all. After a month of training, the restriction on gluttony still hadn't been lifted, meaning his ability values were still insufficient. The method to improve ability values is to push the body as close to its limits as possible. Fighting with all one's might is the best training method, so for him, his training never ended. As he delivered a full power strike, Jong-uk Hong fell to the ground. With this, Taeyeon Kim finally got his second number tag. On screen, Tae-Yuke-go burst into laughter. He really isn't a normal person. Using such a training method in such a large-scale battle, he truly is surprising. But now comes the key point. If he's fighting for ability values, then the previous battle has already consumed too much energy. To conserve energy, he should specifically seek out the weak. However, the next second, the director appeared extremely shocked. Meanwhile, everyone expressed concern at the scene before them, because a mere C-rank awakener actually wanted to challenge an S-rank. Taehyung Kim now stood opposite Yeonbok Shin. At this point, he already possessed 147 number tags. Looking at Yeonbok Shin with his numerous number tags, Taehyung Kim made a bold decision. Next, I just need to defeat you. After Taehyung Kim decided on his target, both sides launched particularly fierce attacks. Faced with the oncoming lightning power, Taehyung Kim very nimbly dodged it. With a point of the thunder god's finger, another wave of lightning attacked Taehyung Kim, but he easily avoided it. Meanwhile, Taehyung Kim immediately used stone skin to kick at the thunder god, but it didn't cause him any harm. However, he still gave Taehyung Kim some praise. After all, there weren't many who could get close to him. With a loud boom, Taehyung Kim was instantly sent flying. Even he hadn't expected that Yeonbok Shin, known as the thunder god, would be so difficult to deal with. The powerful lightning power around his body not only blocked all attacks, but its strong power allowed him to realize both close and ranged combat. At this moment, Taehyung Kim was thinking about how, without being able to use gluttony, he should break through his defense. Just then, Yeonbok Shin actively launched an attack towards Taehyung Kim. Taehyung Kim dodged by sidestepping, but unexpectedly, his path was blocked by a kick. Followed by Yeonbok Shin's continuous strikes, he had no choice but to retreat to avoid. But just then, with a wave of his hands, countless lightning powers poured down on Taehyung Kim. At this point, Yeonbok Shin continuously taunted him. The next second, Taehyung Kim immediately used his stone skin skill. Then an enormous stone fist went straight towards the thunder god. But with just a raise of his hand, he instantly destroyed it. With a burst of bright light, Taehyung Kim momentarily lost his vision. At this time, the thunder god was raising his right hand high. The next second, an incredibly powerful lightning strike hit Taehyung Kim. But Taehyung Kim took it with sheer willpower. Even Yeonbok Shin found this very surprising. He had thought all participants were third-rate. The only one who could match him was Iong Lim. But what he hadn't expected was that such a person existed. Just then, a stone pebble flew towards his face, hitting him squarely on the forehead. While he was momentarily stunned, Taehyung Kim had already instantly appeared behind him. With Taehyung Kim's full-force swing, countless stone pebbles hit the thunder god. He was puzzled why Taehyung Kim's attack was effective. Indeed, the stone skin skill couldn't penetrate his lightning defense. Even the highest level stone skin would be completely shattered upon contact with lightning. But the player exam venue was different because it used special materials that could withstand players' power. Although it might break, it would never disappear, so he only needed to use this thing as a weapon to successfully break through the thunder god's defense. As for you, Yeonbok Shin, you're no match for me. After Taehyung Kim defeated Yeonbok Shin with one punch, people began discussing a C rank actually took down an S rank awakener. Who exactly is this Taehyung Kim? Meanwhile, the director finally relaxed. He really is an impressive fellow. The next second, the director's brows furrowed again. Meanwhile, looking at the number tags scattered on the ground before him, now he just needed to wait for the exam to end. Just then, an ice spike flew towards his face. Taehyung Kim leaped to avoid it, and he was very puzzled. Why would ice suddenly appear? But what happened next shocked him beyond belief. Countless ice flowers instantly enveloped the arena. In just moments, a massive space formed. At this time, Iong Lim was slowly walking toward him. Taehyung Kim was astonished. Why had she suddenly appeared here? Had she been watching this match for a long time? Just then, Iong Lim shared her thoughts on what she had witnessed. She believed that with great power comes great responsibility, and using abilities without responsibility was nothing but barbaric behavior. Taehyung Kim, you are indeed strong. Even I didn't expect you would defeat Yeonbok Shin in this manner. So you used this same method to defeat Jongjae Lee, right? The next second, huge ice pillars descended from above, followed by countless more ice pillars falling down. Taehyung Kim could only desperately dodge when faced with this scene. Just then, Iong Lim delivered a flying kick, instantly sending Taehyung Kim flying. She had once trusted Taehyung Kim, believed he was different from Jongjae Lee and wouldn't act recklessly for personal gain. But after watching Taehyung Kim's battle, she understood everything. Whether it was Jongjae Lee or Hyoksu, all the injuries they sustained were caused by Taehyung Kim. As a massive ice pillar rose from the ground, Taehyung Kim crashed heavily onto the ground. It was because Taehyung Kim abused his powers that they were still lying in hospital beds. But that was also their own fault, so she wouldn't report Taehyung Kim's behavior. However, she hoped Taehyung would give up on the player exam, because he wasn't qualified to become a player. Taehyung Kim responded to this. Someone who couldn't even stop Jongjae Lee is talking about power and responsibility? In the end, all you want to do is eliminate me. Are you afraid of my power? Hearing this, Iong Lim immediately made up her mind. In the next second, as she slowly gathered her magic, a giant frost hammer appeared in her hands. Taehyun Kim, this is where you end. Faced with such powerful magic, even Taehyun didn't know what to do. After experiencing stone skin hundreds of times, he had already lost that ability, and stealth was completely useless against this large-scale attack. Although Heart of the Sovereign was fully activated, it was of no use in this situation. Worst of all, Gluttony still couldn't be activated, and due to insufficient stamina, he couldn't inject paralysis poison during combat. Now there was only one option left. At this moment, Taehyun Kim rushed toward Ayoung Lim first. As Ayoung Lim swung a powerful strike, a flash of white light illuminated the entire arena. Just as everyone wondered about the outcome, the scene before them left everyone stunned. Simultaneously, as the mist dissipated, the figures of the two appeared before them. Was it a kiss? After this unexpected scene, no one would have thought that when Ayoung Lim swung her ice hammer, Taehyun Kim would lunge toward her. The reason for kissing her was solely to inject paralysis poison. When releasing status effect skills, delivering them at close range internally greatly increases the success rate. So Taehyun made her swallow blood containing paralysis poison. Considering the natural resistance of S-rank awakeners, this was a desperate gamble. Fortunately, the plan worked. Just then, an announcement sounded in the arena. The first round of the player exam has ended. Please remain in place, examinees. After the exam concluded, all injured examinees promptly received treatment. Although Ayoung Lim was affected by paralysis poison, she didn't lose her number, so she passed the player exam. As for Taehyun Kim, though he only obtained 7 numbers. Because he defeated Yoonbak Shin and Ayoung Lim, he became the focus of this player exam. This healing is quite effective. Should I use Gluttony to absorb one? Just then, Yoonbak Shin suddenly launched an attack against Taehyun Kim. Even he hadn't expected Yoonbak would appear here. Now you won't be able to use those underhanded tactics. As he exerted his strength, the two were instantly pushed apart. Nearby onlookers watched them with excitement. In the next second, lightning suddenly struck them. Now, let's have a fair fight. Just as the battle between the two was about to erupt, an invisible force suddenly came, immediately pressing Yoonbak to the ground. He was now howling in pain. Taehyun Kim wore an expression of disbelief. At this moment, a man with glasses slowly walked toward them. Damn it, can't you two stay quiet? Taehyun Kim recognized him immediately. He was S-rank player Songjin Park, one of the most outstanding players in the Players Association, destined to become a double S-rank player. He was surprised that someone could still stand before him. As he exerted his power, the weight on Taehyun's body continued to increase. Even he hadn't imagined the power gap between S-rank awakeners and players would be so vast. Songjin Park showed some surprise, as even veteran players found this level of pressure hard to endure. Just as he was about to apply more force, a doctor nearby quickly stopped his actions. After receiving a lecture from the doctor, he asked for Taehyun Kim's name. Taehyun Kim responded, "My name is Taehyun Kim. So you're the rising star who defeated 2 S-ranks. That's very interesting. Your goal must be to become an S-rank player, right? I'll be waiting for you at the finish line." Scene change, everyone now faced the second player exam. The content of this exam was very simple. They would enter a D-rank dungeon through the gate behind him. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. A real dungeon? The rules were, every 5 examinees would form a team, led by a player acting as examiner, to clear the dungeon. Once inside, every action of the examinees would be evaluated, covering combat, observation, knowledge, and medical support. The association would provide necessary weapons and consumables. Now, please enter the gate in order. Taehyun Kim appeared relaxed, as having a player present meant major problems were unlikely, unless they encountered the double dungeon, Apocalypto. That was an S-rank dungeon, initially discovered inside a D-rank dungeon during a player exam. The exam team was wiped out immediately upon entering, which led to many undiscovered dungeons being banned from entry. If only Taehyun Kim could prevent it in advance. But who would believe him? Besides, he had his own matters to attend to. As long as Taehyun Kim wasn't the first to discover the double dungeon, he would surely find a way to survive. After Taehyun Kim entered the dungeon, looking at the 5 people standing before him, he remained silent for a long time, because the proctor of the second exam round was A-rank player Do-hak Ma, who was also the first person to discover the double dungeon. Scene change, everyone who entered the dungeon was full of energy. In no time, they completely eliminated the monsters before them. Even the examiner gave them high praise. Although this is your first real combat, everyone performed exceptionally well. Becoming players is just a matter of time. Taehyun Kim was incredulous. Why did he have to end up in this squad? There was no mistake. The ring worn by Dohak Ma was the item belonging to the first person who discovered the double dungeon. The Ring of the Sage. Unique grade, all attribute values increased tenfold. The double dungeon was S rank, and Taeyeon Kim, unable to use his gluttony skill, would certainly face death if he encountered it. He had to find a way to prevent them from discovering the double dungeon. The opportunity soon presented itself, as everyone was debating which path to take. Taeyeon Kim ran toward the right path first. This startled the examiner, as acting independently could be dangerous. But to prevent them from discovering the double dungeon, Taeyeon Kim had no choice but to take this desperate measure. Soon he would regret his decision. A spatial gate suddenly appeared before everyone. Why was there another spatial gate inside the dungeon? Taeyeon Kim recognized it immediately. This was the double dungeon, Apocalypto. Damn it, I can't believe we still ended up here despite all the detours. As his teammate prepared to step forward and investigate, Taeyeon Kim immediately stopped him. Wasn't it strange for a new entrance to appear inside a dungeon? In this special situation, shouldn't they report to the association first? Of course, even the examiner had never encountered such a situation. But after a moment's thought, he decided to enter and explore first. The magical energy emitted from the entrance was only D rank, and even if something went wrong, there was an A rank player present. Moreover, if it was indeed a special event, exploring it would earn them extra points. This shocked Taeyeon Kim. But doesn't this violate protocols? But the examiner rebuked him. Taeyeon Kim, someone who doesn't even understand teamwork has the right to say such things? Hearing this, everyone immediately began criticizing Taeyeon Kim. As the examiner snapped his fingers, a flash of white light appeared. When Taeyeon Kim opened his eyes again, he was startled by the scene before him, because this place didn't look like a D-rank dungeon. Looking at the enormous statue standing before them, everyone started discussing among themselves. At this moment, Taeyeon Kim signaled them to be quiet, because they had come. Then two figures slowly appeared before them. When they saw their true forms, everyone fell into panic. These were A-rank monsters, Death Knights. The examiner immediately signaled everyone to prepare for battle. In the next second, the monsters launched an attack toward them. Everyone dodged to the side. Then the examiner began assigning tasks. He would use magic to contain the enemy. Everyone else would seize opportunities to inflict damage. And the person with the shield needed to stand at the front to block the monster's attacks. After a brief effort, they finally eliminated the A-rank monster. Even they hadn't expected to defeat an A-rank monster. Just as they were immersed in the joy of victory, the next second, they froze in place, because a new wave of Death Knights was slowly approaching them. Everyone was shocked, but Taeyeon Kim noticed something wasn't right. After clearing another wave of monsters, everyone was now gasping for breath. But the number of monsters hadn't decreased. For every wave they eliminated, twice as many would appear next. At this rate, everyone would eventually die here. At this point, Taeyeon Kim said he had noticed something strange. The examiner was confused. What's with this guy? How can he not be tired after fighting for so long? He also found this door very dangerous. What they didn't know was that without the heart of the sovereign's skill enhancing their abilities, everyone would have perished long ago. So what do you find strange? Although it was just his speculation, they probably weren't Death Knights. Hearing this, everyone couldn't accept it. What he needed to do next was to verify it himself. He swung his greatsword and charged toward the monsters. Facing the enemy's encirclement, he leaped into the air, then raised his greatsword, and flung it with all his might at the statue. With a loud crash, the statue shattered. Simultaneously, the surrounding Death Knights instantly vanished. Then the entire scene underwent a dramatic transformation. Was this an illusion? An illusion trap, designed to make us fight fake enemies to drain our stamina. Everyone found this hard to accept. They had fought for so long only to face illusions. But the examiner was curious. How did Taeyeon Kim know it was a trap without ever having fought Death Knights? Just intuition. Death Knights wouldn't be this weak. Then Taeyeon Kim urged everyone, let's leave quickly or you'll all die here. However, despite destroying the illusion trap, the situation didn't improve. The appearance of the double dungeon had completely altered the dungeon's internal space. And due to the previous battle, everyone was now covered in wounds. Their only hope was to find the dungeon's exit. After a brief search, they finally found a large door. Although opening it carried certain risks, they had no other choice. As the door slowly opened, the examiner was shocked, because a Death Knight was kneeling inside the door. Just as everyone thought it was over, countless Death Knights slowly appeared before them. Then a light of fire rose, instantly illuminating the entire room. Everyone's bodies trembled uncontrollably, because what they saw were countless Death Knights. Just then, a voice sounded from ahead. It was the Death Knight Lord. Curse humans, you finally reached here. Now, let's begin the duel. Looking at the mighty battle in front of them, Everyone immediately fell into panic. As Taehyun Kim tried to calm them down, the three people behind him had already fled in terror. They would rather return to where they came from than die here. But then the Death Knight swung a powerful blow toward them, severely wounding them. The two were shocked by what they saw. Taehyun Kim shouted to Do-hak Ma, "I'll buy time, you go find the exit." But in the next second, Do-hak Ma sent him flying out the door, then used magic to create a barrier wall. Taehyun Kim couldn't understand why he did this. He mumbled to himself. He had always wanted to become an S-rank player, but no matter how hard he worked to improve himself, he only seemed to get further from his goal. He thought his dream would come true if he solved the double dungeon, but that was too simplistic. Facing the Death Knight's attack, he used an X-slash with a wave of his hand, killing it. He had to admit Taehyun Kim had the potential to become an S-rank player, so he hoped Taehyun could take the injured teammates and leave. As for stopping these monsters, that was an examiner's duty. However, looking at the fallen teammates, they seemed to have already lost their lives. Just then, a loud noise came from behind. When he turned around, rows of Death Knights stood before him, and the examiner lay in a pool of blood. Looking at the tragic scene around him, Taehyun Kim was filled with fear. At the same time, the Death Knight before him slowly raised its sword. "Do you request a duel?" As Taehyun Kim was stunned, he noticed the ring lying nearby. Wasn't that Do-hak Ma's Ring of the Sage? In the next second, the Death Knight launched an attack. Taehyun Kim dodged to the side, then bent down to pick up the ring. Now he could only place his hope in the ring. The moment he put on the ring, a powerful magical energy erupted from his body, instantly eliminating all the surrounding monsters. Even the Death Knight Lord was startled. "What is this power?" A prompt appeared. "Due to wearing the Sage's ring, all your stats have been increased by 10. All conditions satisfied. Gluttony seal, release." A red energy rapidly spread in all directions. In moments, he devoured all the surrounding Death Knights. At the same time, facing the enemy's massive assault, Taehyun Kim immediately used Gluttony to defend. With just one strike, he instantly repelled the enemy. But Gluttony alone wasn't enough. It took 10 seconds to devour them. During that time, he had to use all his skills, using everything to fight. Only then could he survive. But just then, a purple spear landed directly in front of him. This startled Taehyun Kim. Then he was shocked by what he saw. The Death Knight Lord slowly gathered magical power. In the next second, countless spears floated above him, then all struck straight down. To avoid the Death Knight Lord's attack, Taehyun Kim could only run forward. Then he seized the opportunity, using all his strength to use Gluttony on the Death Knight Lord. However, faced with such powerful ability, the Death Knight Lord merely raised his hand and negated it. It admitted that Taehyun was indeed strong, but only to this extent. As the Death Knight Lord delivered a full power strike, Taehyun Kim now lay in a pool of blood. It was curious about who had given Taehyun Kim this power. Then it immediately used the howl of the Death Knight Lord to attack Taehyun Kim. But Taehyun Kim's unknown power successfully resisted part of the attack. You are not an ordinary human, and it had known all along that Taehyun Kim could understand their language. So it asked again, "Where is your power from?" As the Death Knight Lord exerted its power, Taehyun was now on the brink of death. At this moment, Asmodeus's figure appeared before him again, looking at his teammates lying in pools of blood. He suddenly realized it was exactly the same as before. Nothing had changed. He didn't know what kind of power Gluttony was, or why he could suddenly understand the monster's language. He had gained power and opportunity, yet changed nothing. Why did the king give me this power? Just then, a familiar voice sounded in his ear. A figure slowly appeared before him. "I've told you before, I simply admire your will and tenacity. You don't need to change yourself, just keep moving forward bravely." In the next second, Taehyun Kim suddenly opened his eyes. Just as the Death Knight Lord was about to deliver the fatal blow, countless red energies attacked in all directions, devouring everything in their path. Now the Death Knight Lord realized something was wrong. Is this guy using his body to make his skill go berserk? With a shout, his magical power suddenly surged. Seeing this, the Death Knight Lord became interested. It swung a full power strike at Taehyun Kim. But Taehyun Kim easily blocked it. You wanted to know what this power is? Then find out for yourself. As Taehyun exerted his strength, the Gluttony's skill rose to B rank. Then a magical force struck the Death Knight Lord, sending it flying dozens of meters. At the same time, Taehyun Kim picked up a nearby greatsword, then flash-stepped to the Death Knight Lord and slashed it multiple times. The Death Knight Lord was furious, immediately summoning a pile of weapons to attack Taehyun Kim. But Taehyun Kim just slowly raised his right hand, then delivered a full power strike. In the next second, a red dragon lunged at the Death Knight Lord. As it was shocked by this, Taehyun Kim murmured, "I am not human. And this power is the power of kings." As he exerted his strength, the Death Night Lord was completely devoured. A prompt appeared, new skill added, Zeal of the Night Lord. Outside, everyone was looking grimly at the entrance, because after reassessment, the dungeon had been classified as S rank. Damn it, how did a D rank dungeon suddenly become S rank? At this rate, everyone will die here, as he alone couldn't possibly clear it. Just then, a purple light suddenly emanated from the dungeon entrance, just as everyone thought monsters were coming. In the next second, a figure slowly appeared before them. Taehyun Kim had finally returned. Scene change. Thanks to Taehyun's efforts, all examinees safely evacuated the dungeon. The exam results would be determined by the scores before leaving the dungeon. The deceased were all properly arranged for. As for who cleared the double dungeon, the higher-ups decided not to disclose it. After all, revealing the truth would bring Taehyun enormous trouble. Of course, the two men before him knew the importance of this matter. The association president asked them, "So what do you think of his abilities? Someone who can clear the double dungeon alone. Since he could complete an S-rank dungeon by himself, he's at least an S-rank player. However, considering the vast gap between his current level and S-rank, his potential is immeasurable." The two exchanged glances, then blurted out to the chairman, "That guy could potentially become a national-level combatant." On the other side, Taehyun was shocked by what he saw, because countless monsters stood before him. Damn it, isn't this the abyss? Just then, a figure slowly walked toward him from the distance, and he suddenly realized the person before him was the king. At the same time, the surrounding monsters let out howls of anguish as the king waved his hand. In the next second, all the monsters were instantly eliminated. As Taehyun Kim was stunned, a voice came from ahead, "I will always be waiting for you, in the deepest part of the abyss." Then Taehyun Kim suddenly woke from the nightmare. He felt a sense of dread, because he clearly knew it wasn't a dream. But what did the king's words mean? Even the gluttony ability that S-rank monsters greatly feared, and even the ability to understand monster language. There were too many puzzling points. It seemed there was no choice but to go to the abyss. Looking at the row of B-rank skills, as expected, he realized his rank had risen to B during the battle with the Death Night Lord. Now his abilities were only comparable to S-rank players. At this rate, he would eventually become a national-level combatant. Just then, a sound from outside the door caught his attention. A strange figure slowly appeared before him. Scene change. Now he was sitting in a car. He was curious about what business the leader of Nightwalker, one of the 4 major guilds, the Information Guild, had with him. She responded that she merely wanted to see what kind of person cleared the double dungeon and incidentally give him a ride home. But Taehyun obviously didn't accept this explanation. Then she got to the point. The third exam would involve simulated battles like the first one. The difference was that outsiders would be sitting in the audience watching the matches. This meant all of Taehyun's abilities would be made public, and he would certainly become the target of all guilds. She came in advance to invite Taehyun Kim to join the Nightwalker Guild. For this, she was willing to satisfy all of Taehyun's requests. However, despite the guild leader's sincere invitation, Taehyun Kim firmly rejected it. After Taehyun flatly rejected her invitation, he was heading home. The guild leader was puzzled. Why had Taehyun Kim rejected so decisively? Had he already agreed to join another guild? But Taehyun Kim denied this. In his eyes, other guilds were no different from Nightwalker. He simply didn't want to join, that's all. Just as he turned to leave, the guild leader flashed beside him and covered his mouth. "What are you? Just a brat who's newly become a player. How dare you refuse one of the 4 major guilds?" But she forgave Taehyun Kim's behavior, because she saw great potential in him. At this moment, Taehyun Kim muttered, "You still like to cause trouble, don't you? Truly worthy of being Ayeong Lim's elder sister." Hearing this, the guild leader was immediately shocked. "How do you know about this?" "I know a lot. About that name that was taken from you." The next second, a green light shot straight into the sky. The guild leader immediately unleashed a powerful magical force. Even the man beside her couldn't help but frown. This is terrible. Guild leader Ayeong Yu's real name was originally Ayeong Lim. As the illegitimate daughter of the Yuksong group representative, she should have been treated as the future heir. But after her father's main wife gave birth to a younger daughter, her name was taken away. Eventually, Ayeong Yu chose to change her surname and became a player. However, only a very few people knew about this. Now facing the guild leader's powerful aura, Taehyun Kim decisively used his ability to resist and activated the Zeal of the Night Lord to counterattack. The guild leader was very shocked. What was this power? It not only blocked her attack but also counterattacked her. Then Taehyun Kim slowly walked toward the guild leader. The next second, he pinned her against the wall. I advise you not to cross the line, Miss Ayong Yu. Hearing this, the guild leader's face immediately flushed red. The scene changes. Everyone is slowly heading to the arena, and this is the main venue for the player's third round of examination. Unlike the previous undisclosed examinations, the audience can freely watch this test. Of course, the chief examiners will also be watching from backstage. The disguised Ayong Yu has also arrived at the scene. At this moment, the uncle beside him is expressing concern for Taehyun Kim. After all, he heard that the player examination is very dangerous. But his cousin indicates they needn't worry, because brother Taehyun could knock them down with just one punch. Meanwhile, reporter Kim Gija feels restless. Due to her previous interview with a C-class awakener, her boss is very dissatisfied, and she is now facing the problem of unemployment. That kid named Taehyun Kim should have been eliminated, right? Just then, people around noticed that the atmosphere in the examination field was a bit off. Those battle-hardened players, even Gilson Lee, the A-class rising star player, they were all staring at the same person. Were they planning to defeat him together? How strong is that guy? At the same time, a broadcast sounded from the front. All spectators, please protect yourselves and concentrate on watching. The third round of the player examination officially begins. At this moment, everyone launched an attack toward Taehyun Kim. Because they had reached a consensus before the match, they must eliminate him first. After all, in the first round of the player examination, he had single-handedly eliminated two S-class monsters. Just as everyone rushed to attack him, the next second, a figure suddenly emerged from the mist. Then Taehyun Kim decisively used the stone skin skill. After a barrage of punches and kicks, the crowd in front was cleared away. And just at this moment, a green light suddenly burst from under Taehyun Kim's feet. The next second, countless vines instantly wrapped around him. He was very surprised. What the hell is this? At this moment, Gilson Lee muttered, even if you defeated two S-class monsters, you still let your guard down. The winner of this exam will be me, A-class Gilson Lee. But before he finished speaking, Taehyun Kim suddenly broke free from the restraints, then kicked him flying tens of meters away. However, before he could rest for a moment, the crowd once again launched an attack on him. At this moment, Taehyun Kim raised his hand and pointed, "Zeal of the Night Lord!" The next second, a red light filled the entire field. Then the figure of the Death Knight Lord appeared before everyone. The powerful force instantly pressed down on everyone, making them unable to move. At the same time, the audience watching outside was extremely shocked by this. And Ayong Yu directly said, "This is truly unbelievable. He dares to use this move in the arena." In less than a moment, all the examinees on the field were eliminated by Taehyun Kim. It looks like this should be over soon, right? Now there's only one person left on the field, S-class Ayong Lim. At this moment, Taehyun Kim said, "Why don't you forfeit? Or do you want to experience the same situation as in the first round of examination?" Hearing this, Ayong Lim immediately tensed up. The next second, a huge ice barrier instantly enveloped them. "Taehyun Kim, you'd better take care of yourself first. This time, I will never let that kind of thing happen." In less than a moment, the arena was already in ruins. Then Ayong Lim was seen slowly falling forward. Although she couldn't defeat Taehyun Kim still gave her high praise. She was still the most difficult opponent to deal with. At the same time, a broadcast sounded, "This player examination is officially over. The winner is contestant number 920, Taehyun Kim." The scene changes. The Player Association president has prepared generous gifts for Taehyun Kim, who won first place. Congratulations on becoming an S-class player. But what he didn't expect was that in the third round of examination, Taehyun Kim actually defeated all the examinees single-handedly. But thinking carefully, it seemed reasonable. After all, he was the one who had conquered the double dungeon alone. At this moment, the president asked him, "Taehyun, do you want to join the new H-Country Players Association to contribute your strength to the association?" Hearing this, Taehyun Kim was immediately stunned. Then, looking at the trophy, he fell into deep thought. Many things had changed. Once a non-awakener, he had defeated S-class players, not only becoming the champion, even the leader of the 4 major guilds. New H-Country's most powerful Jinhui Ji had extended an olive branch to him. After careful consideration, Taehyun Kim ultimately rejected him. At this moment, the president was extremely shocked by this. Then Taehyun Kim gave his reason. Rather than serving the guild and association, he believed he would be more efficient acting alone. Hearing this, the president immediately burst into laughter. Even he hadn't expected Taehyun Kim to say such a thing. How could one person be better than an entire association? Then the president changed the subject. Since that's the case, let's not talk about joining the association. The next thing might interest you. The Asian Exhibition Games. Are you interested in participating? After the president extended an invitation to Taeyeon Kim, he went to conquer a dungeon. In less than a moment, the monsters in this dungeon were completely eliminated by him. At this time, he suddenly remembered the exhibition games mentioned by the Player Association president. The exhibition games, a competition where associations or guilds from various countries select 5 representatives to compete in hunting demons and monsters. However, participating in such a competition isn't that easy, because to become a national representative, one must have enough contribution points. And contribution points can only be obtained by killing powerful monsters. Although the president proposed to make Taeyeon Kim a national representative, he knew well that for someone who had just become a player, to catch up with those who had accumulated contribution points for several years, he must resolve more powerful monsters. But after a month of hard work, Taeyeon Kim solved all the dungeons that appeared during this month, but he didn't get any personal growth, let alone contribution points. He had no other choice now, so he decided to go to that dangerous place. On the other side, the chairman of the Taesang group was furiously scolding the bald man, because his son was still lying in the hospital bed, but the guy who had hurt him had become an S-class player. With this sudden force, the bald man was slammed heavily onto the ground. Just then, the maid indicated that there was a visitor from the malignant guild. Hearing this, the chairman immediately became furious. After all, he had hired this guild to deal with Taeyeon Kim before. Just then, a powerful aura suddenly arrived. At this moment, a figure slowly appeared before him. "Chairman, please calm down. Isn't your target that brat?" The chairman was very shocked. "Who exactly are you?" Then he muttered, "Nice to meet you. I'm the vice leader of the malignant guild Shadow." The scene changes. Taeyeon Kim had just walked out of the teleportation gate. The fat man in front immediately called out to him. He was the one responsible for taking Taeyeon Kim to the auction. A-rank player of the Alchemist Guild, Janung Park. Also a loyal fan of Taeyeon Kim and a member of the Taeyeon Kim Club. This is the highest level auction area, East Point. It has the largest auction scale, the best quality auction items, and provides convenient translation functions. Among these, the most excellent aspect is safety. Because this place can change coordinates at any time, and without permission, one cannot come here. Thanks to this system, there have been no problems here for decades. Indeed, but Taeyeon Kim knew well that today this place would be attacked by an S-class demon. The scene changes. On the stage, a valuable item is being auctioned, the Phoenix Potion. Drinking it can increase magic and stamina by 20 points, and Taeyeon Kim's purpose for coming here was only one, that is to gain contribution points by killing S-class demons. However, he didn't know much about the information here. He only remembered that before his return, East Point had suffered significant losses in a demon attack, and he was curious who had resolved that kind of monster. Then he asked the fat man, "Who is the person in charge here?" Just as he was about to explain, the next second, a voice caught the attention of the two. "Isn't this the youngest S-class player from H country? If I remember correctly, his name should be Taeyeon Kim, right?" The newcomer was the S-class player from J country, Ryoma Isaka, also the security chief in charge here. But it should be noted that this guy could even harm his companions for his own benefit, known as a demon among players. At this moment, he slowly extended his left hand. "Very pleased to meet you, genius player." And Taeyeon Kim also shook hands with him, without any guard. The next second, countless electric currents struck directly at Taeyeon Kim. Even he hadn't expected this guy to use such methods. And now he felt extremely excited. "I didn't expect you really are S-class." Just as Taeyeon Kim was about to counterattack, he noticed the crowd beside him, who were now lying on the ground with blue faces. And at this time, he released Taeyeon Kim's left hand, then bent down and said, "Now you should understand, right? Even S-class players have level distinctions." Although he didn't know why Taeyeon Kim had come here, he advised Taeyeon Kim not to cause trouble. Finally, continued to enjoy the auction. Looking at his slowly disappearing figure, Taeyeon Kim realized, "It seems things are more complicated than I imagined." While Taeyeon Kim was waiting for the event to happen, on the other side, a group of guys were slowly approaching the control room, and to ensure the safety of the control room, the bald man led everyone to launch an attack. But in just one encounter, everyone was killed by the old man. This person was the S-class demon of unknown origin, Ophid Uro. At the same time, the subordinate beside him was reporting the situation. "A variable has appeared in the auction because S-class player Taeyeon Kim from New H country has appeared here. What should we do next?" At this moment he muttered, "What kind of stinking brat is that? As long as I'm here, no one can escape God's revelation." The next second, a huge explosion occurred. He immediately destroyed the auction site. Then numerous explosions followed, and 2 buildings were severely damaged. Even Taehyun Kim was extremely shocked by this. Although he knew this place would be attacked, he hadn't expected it to be several places. How did those guys enter the auction? But the most important thing now is to deal with those demons first. Just as the demon was signaling everyone not to make rash moves, the next second, a figure flashed by, and all the demons in front were instantly killed. At this moment, Taehyun Kim signaled to Jeonnam Park, "Quickly contact the association for reinforcements here. I'll be responsible for capturing the mastermind." The scene changes. Everyone is protecting the items that have been bid on by guests. However, with Dark's command, both sides immediately engaged in a fierce battle. In less than a moment, they all fell in pools of blood. At this moment, Dark grabbed the item in front of him, finally found it, the Phoenix Potion. After consumption, it can permanently increase magic and stamina by 20 points. And he finally understood why Ophid Uro wanted to get this thing. Because just by looking at it, one could feel the immensely powerful force it contained. If he could drink it, just then a loud noise was heard. Then a subordinate fell to the ground in response. Before he could react, the surrounding subordinates were killed one after another. Only then did he realize this skill was stealth. At the same time, a nimble slash instantly fell. It immediately cut his right eye. And at this time, he suddenly activated his magic power. The next second, Taehyun Kim was tightly bound by countless chains. You think you're great because you can be invisible? Now you're done for. However, Taehyun Kim was extremely excited at this moment. Can this skill actually locate opponents? It looks very good, a skill worth using gluttony on. On the other side, Ophid Uro had already occupied the space gate control room. I didn't expect things to develop so smoothly. Next, I just need to get the Phoenix Potion and it's over. At the same time, the subordinate beside him was reporting the situation to Ophid Uro. Dark, who went to find the Phoenix Potion, has news, but there seems to be some problems. At this moment, a voice came from the walkie-talkie. "Are you that Ophid Uro?" And Ophid Uro showed a shocked expression. "Who exactly are you?" "Who else?" "Of course, it's the one who stole your things. If you still want the Phoenix Potion, come quickly." "Damn old thing." At this moment, he drank the Phoenix Potion in his hand in one gulp. The next second, his stamina and magic power were instantly enhanced. Even he hadn't expected this thing to be so effective. But now there's no need to worry about it being stolen by bad guys. At the same time, Ryoma Isaka was seen leading a group of people slowly arriving here. And the crowd was very confused about this, because they came here through the communication location, but didn't find any trace of anyone. Just then Ryoma Isaka muttered, "Isn't he standing right in front of us? Show yourself, Taehyun Kim." At this moment, Taehyun Kim slowly appeared before everyone. I didn't expect to be discovered even though I was hiding so well. And Ryoma Isaka was very curious why an S-class player would appear here. But Taehyun Kim didn't explain. Instead, "What about you? As the chief security officer, why would you appear at this time?" He explained that he was looking for something. Hearing this, Taehyun Kim immediately understood the ins and outs of the matter. No wonder he felt something was off. With so many excellent players here, yet no one could discover that the enemy had already infiltrated, and entering here required permission. "It seems you are the insider of that organization." The next second, he suddenly launched an attack on Taehyun Kim, but it was blocked by his raised sword. "Quickly take out that thing. That depends on your ability." At the same time, both sides engaged in an extremely fierce battle. Numerous slashes passed around everyone, and Taehyun Kim felt very strained at this moment. Even if he used the stealth skill, Ryoma Isaka could judge Taehyun Kim's position through sound and killing intent. Just as Taehyun Kim was distracted, a slash heavily chopped down on him. Even he hadn't expected that with the same stealth skill, there was such a huge difference between the two of them. But he wasn't worth Taehyun Kim using the predatory skill. With Taehyun Kim's sudden force, the next second, everyone was pressed down by an invisible force. But Taehyun Kim still couldn't find Ryoma Isaka's whereabouts. Just then, a voice came from above him. "Your judgment is very correct. Stealth is useless in front of wide-range skills. But if you want to find me, you should use this skill toward the top." The next second, a nimble slash came toward Taehyun Kim. Its power was so great that it penetrated the entire passage. And at this time, Ryoma Isaka showed an expression of disbelief, because Taehyun Kim had used chains to block his attack. At this moment, Taehyun Kim finally explained. The previous aura wasn't to find his whereabouts, but to limit his range of activity. The next second, countless chains tightly bound Ryoma Isaka. Then Taehyun Kim suddenly threw a punch. This should end it now. At this moment, they were all tightly bound by Taehyun Kim's chains, and he was very curious how an S-class player could do such a thing. Then Taehyun Kim kicked him tens of meters away. Don't waste time, quickly tell all the information about Ofid Oro. Now the associations from various countries have sent reinforcement troops. As soon as they arrive here, you're all done. However, Ryoma Isaka showed an evil smile. You really don't understand anything. On the other side, the two were discussing battle plans. However, the leader of the Alchemist Guild, Sangik Seo, appeared anxiously before them, and he was puzzled why they hadn't sent reinforcement troops to East Point. At this moment, the association president explained to him that when the situation occurred, he immediately sent reinforcement troops. The team was an elite squad led by Songjin Park. But the problem is, currently they cannot go there, because after the East Point control room was occupied, all teleportation gates were blocked. But don't worry, after all, there are two S-class players on site. As long as they can hold on until we open the teleportation gate, it will be fine. And at this time, a young youth slowly appeared before everyone. The scene changes. Ryoma Isaka is now explaining to Taehyun Kim, do you know the skill of contracting with demons? That's Ofid Oro's worst skill. Through the quantity and quality of sacrifices, he can summon a certain level of monster. The sacrifice you're talking about couldn't be, yes, exactly what you're thinking, humans. Even the president and others felt extremely shocked at this moment. Now hundreds of people have been held hostage by Ofid Oro. If he sacrifices all these people, then the consequences will be unimaginable, because that will be a devastating disaster. At this moment, Ryoma Isaka began to taunt Taehyun Kim. You're very lucky to have defeated me, but you can never defeat Ofid Oro. Now you have two choices. Either watch these people be sacrificed, or rush into a battle with no chance of winning. Hearing this, Taehyun Kim immediately fell into deep thought. On the other side, Ofid Oro's subordinate began to report. It seems Ryoma Isaka has lost, but the whereabouts of Taehyun Kim and the Phoenix Potion are still unknown. What should we do next? At this moment, Ofid Oro guessed, perhaps he is waiting for the association's help. Then he waved his hand. The next second, numerous humans were lifted up. Since he doesn't appear voluntarily, I have ways to lure him out. Just as he was about to kill the humans, the venue fell into darkness, and when he came to his senses, he found that the sacrifices in his hand were already gone. At the same time, Taehyun Kim instantly appeared behind him, then swung a full-force attack at him. Ofid Oro dodged it by moving sideways. At the same time, countless monsters suddenly emerged from above his head. Then they all launched an attack on Taehyun Kim. Even he hadn't expected Ofid Oro to hide monsters above his head. At this moment, the crowd on the side called out to Taehyun Kim for help, but he chose to ignore them. The next second, countless monsters fell from above his head. It immediately created a huge crater in the venue. However, with a series of quick strikes, Taehyun Kim quickly eliminated them all. Then he used the zeal of the Night Lord, trying to subdue the monsters on sight with this skill, but he underestimated the abilities of these monsters. They rushed toward Taehyun Kim without being affected at all. Taehyun Kim showed extreme shock at this, and Ofid Oro said coldly beside him, the monsters summoned by the demon contract are different, because they not only obey his commands, but are also affected by magical power. They become stronger than ordinary monsters. Even if you defeated Ryoma Isaka, you shouldn't go against God's will. And under the attack of the monsters, Taehyun Kim quickly fell into a disadvantage. At the same time, the crowd beside felt very scared. Can't that guy even beat the monsters? But only the sharp-eyed uncle discovered. Thanks to Taehyun Kim's help, no monster had noticed them, and he challenged numerous monsters alone. Thinking carefully, his previous actions were also to transfer them to a safe location, and the uncle determined. Taehyun Kim's initial goal was to rescue them. Hearing this, everyone cheered for Taehyun Kim. The next second, Taehyun Kim used chains to tightly bind numerous monsters, then signaled to everyone, shut your mouths quickly. Just the endless monsters had already made him physically and mentally exhausted, not to mention these mortal hostages. At this moment, he realized he couldn't go on like this. So he signaled to Jeonnong Park, act quickly. At the same time, a figure slowly appeared before everyone. Now begin immediately. And not long ago, Taehyun Kim had just resolved Ryoma Isaka. Then he told everything to Jeonnong Park. But the most troublesome thing now is that the control room is filled with numerous monsters. If it's just dealing with Ofid Oro, he doesn't have much of a problem. But this would involve those hostages, so he can't ignore it. Therefore, Taehyun Kim needs his help. But he indicated that it was impossible to connect the association and this place. After all, he didn't know the coordinates here. But Taehyun Kim indicated that he didn't need to worry, because he only needed to teleport the monsters out. At the same time, with the opening of the teleportation gate, countless monsters were instantly sucked in, and Ofid Oro showed a shocked expression at this moment. What is going on? Even Jeonong Park hadn't expected the plan to go so smoothly. Now there's only the last enemy left. At the same time, Taeyeon Kim quickly signaled to him, "Quickly take the hostages away from here." Although he wanted to stay to help Taeyeon Kim, he was rejected because this was an S-class enemy. He couldn't fight and protect at the same time. Hearing this, Jeonong Park immediately led the people out of here. Looking at the gradually disappearing figures of the crowd, a battle between the two sides was imminent. Facing Ofid Oro's fierce offensive, Taeyeon Kim could only choose to dodge, while seeking the right opportunity to attack. Just then, Ofid Oro quickly came in front of Taeyeon Kim, with his hand wave. The next second, a huge fire snake rushed toward Taeyeon Kim, and he could only choose to raise his sword to block. In an instant, a huge explosion sounded in the venue. At this moment, Ofid Oro muttered, "No matter how many demons you eliminate or how many humans you rescue, I am an existence you cannot defeat. You are just doing meaningless things." Then he was about to kill Taeyeon Kim on the spot. But even facing such a dangerous situation, Taeyeon Kim still showed a composed expression, because he firmly believed that Ofid Oro would definitely die here. Next, he decisively used the gluttony skill. In the next moment, a red energy gathered to form a giant dragon, then rushed towards Ofid Oro, instantly devouring all the monsters at once. Even he didn't expect that Taeyeon Kim had been hiding such a skill. At this moment, he couldn't help but burst into laughter. "I've changed my opinion of you, Taeyeon Kim. You are the best sacrifice for the gods." The next second, Ofid Oro's subordinates all fell to their knees before him, then gradually dissipated before his eyes. Did this guy actually sacrifice them? Meanwhile, a green bone dragon appeared behind Ofid Oro, S-class monster bone dragon. On the other side, the escaping people encountered Ofid Oro's subordinates, but when they were about to fight back, the enemies began coughing up blood one by one, then disappeared before their eyes. Just then, a violent tremor struck. Taeyeon Kim was suddenly thrown out of the building by the bone dragon. At this moment, Ofid Oro was laughing loudly. Dragons are the most powerful monsters. Facing such a dangerous situation, Taeyeon Kim used his chain skill to break through the glass nearby, then jumped into the building. Damn, what kind of monster is that? Meanwhile, the bone dragon had already arrived in front of him. Before Taeyeon Kim could react, he was thrown out again by the bone dragon. "Now you're done for, Taeyeon Kim." At this moment, Taeyeon Kim slowly raised his right hand. Just as he was about to use his gluttony skill, a dragon's breath interrupted his skill, accompanied by a loud explosion. Ofid Oro looked somewhat surprised at this point, because even he hadn't expected Taeyeon Kim to survive such an attack. "It seems I still underestimated your strength." After Taeyeon Kim barely avoided the attack using gluttony, he found it hard to believe that such a being was on the same level as him. However, Taeyeon Kim determined that forcefully controlling such power would definitely cause his body to suffer backlash. It looks like he should be reaching his limits soon. If he could continue to delay, then Taeyeon Kim's chances of winning would be high. But unexpectedly, he saw through Taeyeon Kim's thoughts. Delaying is indeed a good judgment, but such a small trick won't work on me. The next second, he immediately controlled the bone dragon, flying rapidly towards Park Jeonong and the others. With a loud explosion, the entire floor suffered devastating damage. On the other side, after the Player Association's relentless efforts, they finally opened a portal to East Point. Under the leadership of player Park Songjin, everyone entered the portal before them. Meanwhile, seeing that everyone was about to be attacked by the bone dragon, Taeyeon Kim selflessly blocked it, but unfortunately the difference in strength between them was too great. With the bone dragon's fierce power, Taeyeon Kim couldn't hold on much longer, and Park Jeonong indicated that Taeyeon Kim shouldn't worry about them, because if Taeyeon Kim died, everything would be over. Indeed, Taeyeon Kim strongly agreed with his point. When he summoned the bone dragon, Taeyeon Kim realized he could never defeat him. The only option was to delay as much as possible, but he believed it was still too early to give up. He must find a way to save everyone. At this moment, a voice came, "I can no longer endure this." Just as Taeyeon Kim was extremely puzzled by this, the next second, a prompt appeared. Gluttony skill temporarily upgraded to A rank, to S rank, to SS rank. Then, as his body couldn't withstand the power of gluttony, it began to break down, and under Ofid Oro's shocked gaze, Taeyeon Kim's gluttony skill rose to SS rank. The next second, an incredibly powerful magical force suddenly enveloped his surroundings. Has gluttony lost control? Damn it, what power did the king give me? Under the mighty power, Taeyeon Kim's body gradually began to break down. Am I going to die like this? Then he collapsed helplessly to the ground. Ofid Oro was extremely shocked at this moment. Because this power was simply too overwhelming. Even the user couldn't withstand its power. But why doesn't he terminate the skill? Is he trying to buy time? So he decided to go and test it. However, unexpectedly, just by approaching, the bone dragon's wings were instantly devoured. Just as Ofidoro was puzzled, Taehyun Kim slowly stood up nearby. The next second, an incredibly huge monster suddenly appeared before his eyes. What is going on? At this moment, a powerful aura erupted from Taehyun Kim. Who are you? You are not Taehyun Kim. How did you acquire this power? That's none of your business, since you're already dead. With a wave of Taehyun Kim's hand, the next second, everything before him was completely devoured by gluttony. Acquired new skill, contract with the devil. After Taehyun Kim dealt with Ofidoro, in his dream, Taehyun Kim was firmly bound by chains that appeared out of nowhere. Then countless giant rocks fell towards him one after another. Then a pair of giant hands appeared out of thin air. The next second, Zeal of the Night Lord was suddenly activated. He was shocked at how his skill could attack himself. Just then, Gluttony mumbled, "You say these are all your skills? Don't joke around. Since you've eaten these skills, it's time to spit them out." With a violent tremor. The next second, Taehyun Kim suddenly woke up from his dream. He looked at everything before him in disbelief, because his right hand, which had been damaged by using gluttony, was now completely intact. Meanwhile, Park Song-jin slowly appeared before him. He brought Taehyun Kim lots of delicious food. This place was a house prepared by the Association and Alchemists for Taehyun Kim, a token of gratitude for stopping the demon's actions. Thanks to Taehyun Kim's help, they captured Ryoma Isaka, and many people survived. As for why he stayed here, it was to protect Taehyun Kim's safety. But Taehyun Kim was confused, as he only remembered falling to the ground while fighting Ofidoro. But he had no idea what happened specifically. "So you're the same?" Park Song-jin came here specifically to ask about this matter. Flashback to earlier, when Park Jae-nung saw Ofidoro killed with one punch. But he was certain the person before him was not Taehyun Kim. At that moment, Taehyun Kim waved his hand, and Park Jae-nung fell to the ground immediately. Just as he was about to proceed to the next step, his body began to slowly dissipate. "Looks like I've reached my limit? Well, can't be helped, I'll go back first." The next second, Taehyun Kim suddenly collapsed to the ground. By the time Park Song-jin hurriedly arrived, the surroundings were in a state of complete ruin. And no one knew exactly what had happened here, although they later questioned the survivors. Without exception, they only remembered that Taehyun Kim defeated Ofidoro, but they couldn't recall the specific details, as if they had been subject to some kind of interference. Perhaps it was the demon's doing. "You should rest and recover. If there are any developments, I'll let you know." But Taehyun Kim knew this was definitely not the demon's doing, because Ofidoro should have been devoured by gluttony. Now he looked at his skills with confusion. Why was it open the Abyss Gate? I remember this was clearly a monster summoning skill, and it required 200 magic points, while he currently only had 180. Just then, Park Song-jin indicated that he had a visitor. The next second, Lim Ayong slowly appeared before him. "I've come to visit you." But rather than a visit, she seemed to be issuing a challenge. "Don't get cocky and arrogant just because you saved many humans and defeated 2 S-rank players. I'll catch up to you soon." For a moment, even Taehyun Kim didn't know why she came here. Initially, she did come to visit Taehyun Kim, but it seemed he currently had no problems. And what was with the strong internal magical power he possessed? It's much stronger than during the player exam. Just then, a nearby movement caught the attention of both. Yu Ah-young was tiptoeing into the room. Lim Ah-young was very curious why her sister would appear in Taehyun Kim's room, but Yu Ah-young didn't seem to welcome her. "Can you not call me sister?" As for the door password, it was provided by the association, and with 2 S-rank players living in the same room, what kind of relationship do you think they have? Hearing this, Lim Ah-young's face immediately turned red. Taehyun Kim interrupted the conversation between the two. "Stop joking, quickly tell me your purpose for coming here." She stated that she also came to visit Taehyun Kim, but she brought a gift as well. In conversations with the association president, she learned that Taehyun Kim's goal was the exhibition games. But despite his achievements in East Point, his ranking was still only 30, and only the top 5 players can participate in the competition. He still needed a significant score boost. So she came to give Taehyun Kim the clearing rights to the double dungeon, the Temple of Fire. Meanwhile, a group arrived at East Point, led by Shadow, the vice president of the Malignant Guild. They were searching for Ofidoro's whereabouts, but without any progress. Just as they were considering whether to report to the boss, Shadow indicated there was no need. After all, Ofidoro was just someone they hired, and their goal had already been achieved. Just then a huge ship appeared before them. as he was indicating that only investigators could enter here. The next second, they found themselves in the sea. The huge ship instantly sank into the cold seawater, and this was Shadow's ability. Meanwhile, he was becoming increasingly interested in Taehyung Kim. Scene change, everyone was extremely excited, because the hero of East Point, S-rank player Taehyung Kim, had arrived. But even though he obtained the clearing rights, the item distribution and team would be decided by the guild. Taehyung Kim had no objections to this, because it was the Temple of Fire after all. The Temple of Fire, named for the flames discovered at its entrance, is the second double dungeon to appear in the country. Before Taehyung Kim's return, this dungeon was cleared by the Nightwalker Guild, but they also suffered considerable casualties. Considering the score and economic issues, Taehyung Kim definitely needed to enter. But because gluttony damaged his right hand, causing Taehyung Kim's power and stamina to decrease significantly, it would be difficult for him to clear it alone. However, if he cleared it with S-rank Yuayong, there would be no problem. Scene change. A team of over 300 people arrived at the dungeon entrance in grand fashion, but only 2 people would be conducting the clear. This startled Taehyung Kim. Why only the 2 of us? Because this is our date. After the 2 entered the double dungeon, Yuayong appeared somewhat shocked, because the atmosphere here was indeed different from ordinary dungeons. Are all double dungeons like this? Taehyung Kim responded that at least the Apocalypto dungeon he experienced before was like this. Just as she was thinking about how to proceed, the next second a tentacle instantly pulled her into a hole. Taehyung Kim quickly reacted, but then he froze in place, because Yuayong had already dealt with the monster. Even Taehyung Kim was extremely shocked to defeat a monster with just 1 strike. Meanwhile, Yuayong immediately launched an attack on the monsters in the hole. A figure flashed by. The next second, countless A-rank monsters were instantly killed. It seems what she showed last time wasn't her true strength. No wonder only 2 people were needed to clear this place. Perhaps I should work harder. In no time, the 2 quickly eliminated all the monsters and reached the underground. Although the monsters were numerous and of high quality, they were no match for Yuayong. Taehyung Kim was very curious about what Yuayong and the others encountered before his return that led to their team being almost destroyed. Just then, Yuayong handed Taehyung Kim a ring. This is equipment called a Ring of the Warrior, which can enhance the user's strength and endurance. This would greatly compensate for the combat power Taehyung Kim lost due to his injured right hand. She indicated that if Taehyung Kim was willing to join the guild, he could get more items. But Taehyung Kim didn't express his stance immediately. Then he gestured to Yuayong. Next, we need to be more careful, because they had reached the boss's location. Yuayong was extremely shocked by this. Is this egg the boss? Of course, he was certain that this egg was the boss they were looking for. Just as he was thinking about investigating carefully, Yuayong had already leaped down, then struck the giant egg with full force. Even Taehyung Kim hadn't expected her to be so reckless. After the mist cleared, the giant egg had already been destroyed by Yuayong, just as she stated that the boss of a double dungeon was so easily defeated. The next second, a blue light appeared. Then a voice came from ahead. Mere humans can actually reach the temple. It seems interesting people have appeared. Then a huge figure appeared before the 2. Double dungeon boss, S-class monster, Phoenix. It's actually a phoenix? Both were extremely shocked by this. Phoenix, a monster mistakenly believed by people to be immortal, possessing powerful regeneration abilities and magic resistance. Even Taehyung Kim hadn't expected that the boss of this dungeon would be a blue-flamed phoenix. The phoenix suddenly launched an attack toward the 2. Taehyung Kim realized that this power had a mind-controlling effect, just as he was warning Yuayong. The next second, Yuayong suddenly attacked him. S-rank Yuayong, now controlled by the phoenix, facing her attack. Taehyung Kim could only dodge it. The next second, he suddenly used Zeal of the Night Lord, immediately knocking Yuayong to the ground. Damn it, can you wake up? At this moment, Yuayong had already gathered her magical power. Then an incredibly powerful energy shot straight towards Taehyung Kim. Seeing this, the watching phoenix couldn't help but smile. Indeed, humans are too naive. Meanwhile, Yuayong finally sensed something strange. A chain instantly wrapped around her left leg. Then numerous chains bound her tightly. Due to the numbing effect of the chains, she could no longer move. Now I finally know who crushed the Nightwalker Guild before my return. Although this attack will hurt a bit, please endure it. The next second, Taehyung Kim swung a giant rock towards Yuayong. Then she was knocked to the ground. When she wakes up, she'll be free from the phoenix's control. Now, it's time to deal with you. Before his words fell, both sides erupted with all their magical power. A moment later, Taehyun Kim was seen carrying Yoo Young on his back and fleeing everywhere. After all, it was difficult for him alone to deal with an S-class monster. Facing the Phoenix's continuous attacks, Taehyun Kim could only seize opportunities to counterattack. Just then, he flashed behind the Phoenix, then struck with full force. But it easily dodged, even using chains to bind it firmly, would be destroyed by the blue flames. Even Taehyun Kim hadn't expected this monster to be so troublesome. As he was momentarily distracted, the Phoenix spat a blue flame at him. Fortunately, Taehyun Kim dodged in time, otherwise the consequences would have been unimaginable. Taehyun Kim realized that this was definitely not an ordinary Phoenix. Could it be a Grand Phoenix? Unlike existing monsters, the Grand Phoenix possesses extremely powerful strength, a legendary mutated individual. To emphasize its power, humans classified this monster as Splus rank. If it really is a Grand Phoenix, then with Taehyun Kim's current strength, he simply cannot destroy its powerful regeneration ability, unless he uses the gluttony skill. But he fears it might lose control like last time. Just as Taehyun Kim was hesitating, Yoo Young suddenly regained consciousness. Faced with everything happening before her, she was extremely shocked. So Taehyun Kim patiently explained to her. At this moment, the Phoenix suddenly launched an attack towards the two. It seems you don't take me seriously. Then it showed a slightly shocked expression, because the two resolved its attack in just a moment. This time, don't get controlled again. Of course, you don't need to worry at all. Seeing this, the Phoenix suddenly erupted with all its magical power, then pounced towards the two. Taehyun Kim decisively used the heart of the sovereign skill. The next second, everyone's ability values were enhanced. Then Yoo Young suddenly swung her spear, instantly shattering the Phoenix's body. Next, leave it to Big Sister, Zeal of the Amazon, Berserker mode. So she decisively launched an attack on the Phoenix. The so-called Berserker mode refers to activating all skills through reversed magical flow. Although it makes skills more powerful, the body suffers permanent damage, so many people are reluctant to use it. Just then, Yoo Young hurled her spear with full force, instantly crushing the Phoenix's body. Meanwhile, Yoo Young followed up with multiple attacks, then struck with full force, smashing it heavily to the ground, with a loud explosion. She had reached her limit. Then she suddenly collapsed to the ground. At this moment, the Phoenix's powerful recovery ability took effect. In no time, more than half of its body had been repaired. Just as it was about to attack Yoo Young, the next second, numerous chains bound it tightly. To combat such powerful regeneration, Taehyun Kim had to use the gluttony skill. Next, let me end this. Scene change, everyone was looking at the dungeon entrance with solemn expressions. After all, the two had been inside for a long time. Just then, Taehyun Kim, carrying Yoo Young, slowly walked out of the entrance. Then he announced, Temple of Fire Double Dungeon successfully cleared. A moment later, news of the double dungeon being cleared spread throughout the entire country. Yoo Young was now looking at everything with a red face. She was very confused why such private matters would be made public. It turned out his subordinates had accidentally leaked it, so she gave them a good lesson. Meanwhile, the association president came to visit the injured Yoo Young. Scene changed, the two began chatting outside. The president was very curious about Taehyun Kim's strength during the dungeon clear. Since she had fainted, she didn't know the specifics, but she could confirm that he defeated the Phoenix alone. Moreover, he had now gone to the abyss. Hearing this, the president was extremely shocked. It seems Taehyun Kim possesses very powerful strength. But Yoo Young was puzzled by this. Everyone should feel self-satisfied after reaching a certain level, but Taehyun Kim showed no intention of stopping. Instead, he used every means to make himself stronger. So what was his reason for wanting to become stronger? The president fell into deep thought. It should be for the entire country. In this era filled with monsters, he hopes to protect this country from monster invasions. That's Taehyun Kim's reason for wanting to become stronger. But Yoo Young didn't think so. On the other side, deep in the abyss, the surroundings were already in ruins. The person before us was the big boss of the abyss. Vampire Lord and Archduke of the Abyss Igmoon, level unknown. He had just granted power to a man. How does it feel to receive our family's power? Of course, I can feel that I possess incredibly powerful strength. Lin Peng Jiang, national level player from Sea Country. Scene change. Taehyun Kim arrived at the abyss. This was his first visit here since his return. The man before him greeted him. I am a member of the World Player Association, responsible for Abyss Sector 22, A-rank player. Paul Becker. Then he gave Taehyun Kim a tour of the abyss interior. If this is your first visit, you should hire a guide or multiple mercenary players. The World Association built many player base camps here to help explore every area of the Abyss. But this doesn't mean the Abyss has become safe, because monster attacks can still occur even inside player base camps. So for safety reasons, Becker believed Taehyun Kim should hire some players. But Taehyun Kim had no such plans. The next second, a giant centipede suddenly attacked the two. However, with just one encounter, the monster was killed on the spot by Taehyun Kim. "I'm just here for a walk." A moment later, Taehyun Kim arrived at a desolate place, then took out the magic stone from his pocket. Thanks to clearing the Temple of Fire double dungeon, Taehyun Kim's magic value reached 200. Now he could finally use this skill, but he was confused why the skill had changed so dramatically, and could only be used once. Was it affected by gluttony? But all this would soon be answered, as he crushed the magic stone. The next second, the contract with the devil skill activated, then a huge skeleton gate appeared before him. Next, let me see what's hidden behind the gate. Then he slowly entered the Abyss Gate. At this moment, he showed an extremely shocked expression, because a huge castle stood before him. Just as he was very confused about this, the next second, 3 figures instantly appeared behind him, so he immediately prepared for battle. It seems the dangerous thing refers to you. Taehyun Kim recognized at a glance that these were legendary succubi. Succubus devours the life of males, can create illusions and use mind control, but succubi should generally be B-rank monsters. Could they be the targets for the contract? If so, then I just need to defeat them. The next second, Taehyun Kim suddenly attacked them, but they easily dodged. Meanwhile, the succubi immediately used the skill illusion. In an instant, Taehyun Kim froze in place. Just as they were feeling pleased with themselves, Taehyun Kim suddenly launched an attack, then used Zeal of the Night Lord, instantly beating them with no chance to fight back. The reason the skill had no effect on him was completely because he used an incredible power to block it. Now, let's proceed with the contract. To contract with a demon, you must meet one of 2 conditions. The first is to hand over what the demon wants. The second is to make it submit with powerful strength. Just as he was about to contract with the demon, the next second a prompt appeared. This demon is not the contract target. Hearing this, Taehyun Kim was extremely shocked. Just then, countless succubi surrounded him. "It seems you're not a simple character. Perhaps you will be the best gift for the queen, Grand Succubus, + rank." On the other side, the queen's subordinates were reporting the situation to her. Currently, one person has infiltrated the castle. A human? This is really interesting. After Taehyun Kim entered the castle, countless succubi launched attacks on him. Even he hadn't expected these creatures to be so troublesome. Meanwhile, 2 succubi blocked his path, then attacked him, and Taehyun Kim immediately chose to lean back to dodge, then used Zeal of the Night Lord. The next second, a powerful force instantly sent them flying hundreds of meters away. Taehyun Kim could finally catch his breath. He realized that if none of these monsters were the contract target, then only one possibility remained, the existence called Tween by the succubi. Just then, the maid before him calmly said, "The queen is waiting for you." Scene change. Taehyun Kim arrived in the queen's chamber. The queen mumbled, "Welcome to my palace. I am the mother of all succubi, Queen Rosaria." Meanwhile, a prompt appeared. Contract with the devil target appears. It seems I guessed correctly. She is the target for this contract. Of course, she confirmed this. But the next second, Taehyun Kim was extremely shocked, because the demon actually used human language. That's nothing special, aren't you? A human, able to understand the language between monsters? But anyway, what did you come here for? Power, wealth, or fame? None of those. I came here to contract with a demon. Hearing this, the queen burst into laughter. You really have the courage to come here. But when jokes go too far, you pay with your life. Succubus Queen Archduchess of the Abyss, Rosaria, level unknown. The next second, countless tentacles rushed towards Taehyun Kim. Taehyun Kim immediately used Zeal of the Night Lord. Then 2 powerful energies collided together. Next, I will make you submit with my power. Facing the queen's attack, Taehyun Kim calmly used his dagger to block. Just then, Taehyun Kim suddenly leaped into the air, then used the stone skin skill to attack the queen. But the next second, all of Taehyun Kim's skills suddenly failed. At this moment, the queen snapped her fingers. Then the scene before him changed dramatically. Even Taehyun Kim was extremely shocked by this. A city actually appeared here. As he was distracted, he instantly fell into the ocean. He now realized that he had fallen into the queen's illusion. However, he was very confused about when exactly the queen had used her illusion. When was it? Of course, right from the beginning. Damn, this is terrible. Just as Taehyun Kim realized he was trapped in an illusion, the next moment, he suddenly appeared in his childhood memories. Back then, he constantly talked about wanting to become an awakened one. because that way he could give his parents a better life. But their greatest wish was simply for him to grow up healthy. Just as he was recalling these beautiful moments, the next second a car accident occurred beside him. The scene of his parents' death appeared before his eyes once again. At the same time, a movement nearby caught his attention. It was an unbearable memory, how without awakened talent he endured constant bullying from others, eventually becoming nothing more than a porter carrying loads for the team. He deeply realized that he was of no help to others, and those who helped him would suffer misfortune. So he chose to leave his aunt and uncle. His mother had hoped he would find happiness, but to obtain happiness one must possess power. At that moment, his body detected the queen's hypnosis skill and tried to resist, but ultimately failed. Now Taeyeon Kim's overall stats decreased, all skills became unusable, only gluttony skill remained. The next second, Taeyeon Kim decisively activated his gluttony skill. Meanwhile, the queen was watching all this with great interest. This guy can actually survive in this situation, but she noticed something strange. The Taeyeon Kim before her seemed older. They seemed to exist simultaneously. However, a segment of memories was different. Could there be some secret hidden within? Just as she continued looking deeper, a figure slowly appeared before her eyes, and she was utterly shocked. It was the king. At the same time, the gluttony skill instantly enveloped her surroundings. In no time, it pulled her back to reality. By now, Taeyeon Kim had already teleported behind her. For a queen, peeping into others' memories is quite a terrible hobby. I'll say it one last time, Rosaria, accept the contract. Yet she remained very calm. I didn't expect you to escape my illusion, but you can't kill me. Now she extended tentacles tightly binding Taeyeon Kim, then murmured, I am willing to accept the contract. Then she bit down hard on Taeyeon Kim's shoulder. At this moment, a window prompt appeared. Conditions met. Summoning contract formed. Contract with Demon Queen. Name changed to Queen's Man. Skill levels readjusted. Gained new skill. Complete hypnosis. Charm value increased. Now she slowly said to Taeyeon Kim, you should get some good sleep. Man chosen by the king. After the contract was completed, Taeyeon Kim suddenly woke from his dream. Only then did he realize he had returned to the player area. Was it Rosaria who sent me back here? Looking at each newly acquired skill before him, he felt extremely shocked. If he summoned Rosaria during the Asian exhibition games, he would have no pressure even against national-level players. But why did she suddenly change her mind? Plus her final words, man chosen by the king. Could she know the king too? Just then, Paul Becker beside him suggested to Taeyeon Kim, why don't you hire a guide? But he refused. After all, the matter was concluded, and it was time for him to go home. Scene change, a young Yu had just completed her discharge procedures. A group of people were slowly walking toward her. Guild leader, congratulations on your discharge, said Jung Han-soo, the magician of the Nightwalker Guild, an A-rank player and deputy guild leader. He brought two pieces of news for Young-yu. Player Taeyeon Kim had returned from the depths of the abyss. Though Young-yu was surprised by this, after all, that place was known as the graveyard of S-rank players. Even Taeyeon Kim couldn't explore it alone. However, Taeyeon Kim's return wasn't really the issue. The issue was who went to see him now. He is the leader of Unbroken, the Battle Guild, one of the 4 major guilds. Player Gangyuk-gwan. Scene change. Gangyuk-gwan suddenly appeared before Taeyeon Kim. Let's start the battle. Then slowly walked toward Taeyeon Kim. Gangyuk-gwan, he is the guild leader of one of the 4 major guilds. Known as the strongest tank, he once fought monsters alone for about 10 hours, eventually eliminating hundreds of monsters. And his most famous incident was forcing people to join the guild through duels. At this point, Secretary Kim immediately stopped his behavior. Could you restrain yourself a bit? If you continue like this, you won't even be able to enter the abyss. Then she began explaining to Taeyeon Kim that they were actually here to invite Taeyeon Kim to join the guild. If Taeyeon Kim expressed willingness to join, then a duel wouldn't be necessary. Doesn't that mean if he didn't want to join, a duel would be mandatory? Of course, but she believed joining the guild would be a good proposal for him, because she knew Taeyeon Kim was preparing to participate in the Asian exhibition games. And they were the guild with the most progress in exploring the abyss among the 4 major guilds, not only possessing numerous dungeon resources, but also able to provide assistance for abyss exploration. If Taeyeon Kim was willing to join, it would be enough to compensate for his lack of contribution value. Hearing this, Taeyeon Kim fell into deep thought. At this moment, the guild leader signaled her not to continue. If he could be persuaded so easily, he would have joined some guild long ago. Now Taeyeon Kim murmured, I've changed my mind. Let's resolve this your way. The winner gets what they want. Of course, that suits me perfectly. Scene change. A sports arena was already packed with people. They were all eagerly anticipating the duel between Taehyun Kim and Gong-hyuk Gwon. Just then, a figure caught his attention. It was reporter Kim. So Taehyun Kim pulled her to the front. "Long time no see, reporter Kim. We met during the player exam, right?" "Of course," she confirmed. Then Taehyun Kim announced to everyone that she would answer the upcoming questions, as he had to participate in the duel. Then he turned and left. Moments later, Taehyun Kim slowly walked onto the stage. Gong-hyuk Gwon said, "I thought you wouldn't come because you were afraid." And Taehyun Kim responded confidently, "Enough talk, let's start the battle." Just as the battle was about to begin, commentator Choi explained the duel rules to everyone. There's only one condition for victory, and that is to defeat the opponent. As soon as he finished speaking, both sides unleashed powerful magic. At the same time, Taehyun Kim first used Zeal of the Night Lord to attack. Now this skill's power had been greatly enhanced, capable of subduing even S-rank players. But clearly this skill had no effect on him. However, he still praised Taehyun Kim. "Well done." The next second, he instantly appeared behind Taehyun Kim, with cheetah-like speed that left Taehyun Kim unable to react. Then he swung with full force. The powerful impact was like a tiger pouncing on its prey, immediately sending Taehyun Kim flying tens of meters away. If he hadn't used stone skin to block it, the consequences would have been unimaginable. While Taehyun Kim was still dazed, Gong-hyuk Gwon attacked again. Now magic energy condensed into a pair of bullhorns on his forehead. The next second, a charging bull attack rushed toward Taehyun Kim, but he dodged it by sidestepping. Then the silhouette of an elephant appeared behind him, followed by a heavy leg strike crashing into the ground. When the mist cleared, Taehyun Kim's figure was still standing before him. "Seems your escape skills are quite good, but how are you going to win this duel? Unless you have another hidden beast, winning this duel won't be easy." Hearing this, Gong-hyuk Gwon immediately became interested. "Then let me show you. I'll end this duel with this move." In an instant, the surrounding crowd erupted with excitement, because this was the guild leader's final attack form. It seemed that even the rising star couldn't match the guild leader. Even Young-yu was watching all this with great interest, but Jong Han-soo reminded her that if Taehyun Kim lost, he would be forced to join the guild. "So we must stop the duel." Player Gong-hyuk Gwon's skill, Blessing of the Beasts, allows him to mimic various animal powers, demonstrating great power in close combat. Even against player Taehyun Kim, he has no chance of winning. But Young-yu indicated he shouldn't worry. After all, in Taehyun Kim's growth so far, he always hides an ace in battle. The next second, Gong-hyuk Gwon attacked Taehyun Kim with full force, yet he appeared completely composed. In the instant they clashed, everyone was utterly shocked. Because Gong-hyuk Gwon had knelt down, even he himself was extremely confused. "It seems I've won." Looking at everything happening in the arena, everyone present was extremely shocked. The guild leader, who had conquered hundreds of dungeons, actually kneeling on his own. Obviously, they didn't believe what they were seeing. They all thought Taehyun Kim had used some kind of trick. Now Taehyun Kim looked at Gong-hyuk Gwon. Indeed, he is the man known as the strongest tank. In close combat, he had absolutely no chance of winning. If Taehyun Kim hadn't used his hypnosis skill at the last moment, the winner of this duel would definitely have been him. Now Gong-hyuk Gwon felt extremely angry. "I didn't expect him to use a mental control skill. I was careless." Then he shouted to everyone, "Quiet down. I don't know what skill he used, but I admit I lost. If you're a member of the guild, just accept this result." Meanwhile, Young-yu was watching all this with great interest. Looks like he was really angered by Taehyun Kim. By the way, in just an instant, that guy Gong-hyuk Gwon actually knelt down. He really did have a hidden skill. "Taehyun Kim, the real you always surprises me." After the duel ended, Taehyun Kim slowly extended his right hand. It was a good match. At this time, Gong-hyuk Gwon asked him about his confusion. "Did you plan to do this from the beginning?" Indeed, in a sense, yes. Though he was quite helpless, a promise is a promise. "So tell me what you want most, countless wealth or unique items?" "Neither. The Minotaur's Labyrinth. I want to participate in its conquest." On the other side, when the director learned of this, he was extremely shocked, because the Minotaur's Labyrinth was a dungeon near the entrance of the abyss. As its name suggests, it was filled with countless traps and complex spaces, so people with perception abilities must be brought there. Many guilds and S-rank players who attempted to conquer it ended in failure. Currently, the Unbroken Guild has the rights to conquer the labyrinth and plans to do so secretly. How did player Taehyun Kim learn about this? Won't this cause problems? Of course, the guild leader still felt somewhat uneasy. After all, you never know what might happen in the abyss. But now all they could do was trust Taehyun Kim. However, what worried him most wasn't the dungeon difficulty, but people. I hope my concerns don't become reality. Just then, an urgent notification came from the screen. The J Country Players Association has contacted us. What urgent matter? The East Point affair should have been resolved. The Saint has sent an invitation to Taehyung Kim. Hearing this, the guild leader was extremely shocked. Scene change at the large-scale gate control room in the association building basement. Secretary Kim was counting the personnel. There are 100 people participating in the labyrinth conquest, all present. Then, under the guild leader's leadership, everyone slowly advanced toward the labyrinth entrance. Moments later, accompanied by a huge roar, everyone began fighting the monsters in the labyrinth. A figure flashed by, instantly killing the surrounding minotaurs. I didn't expect you to be quite capable. How's the weapon working for you? It's pretty good. This was originally prepared for when you joined the guild. Atheran, item rarity, rare. At this time, Taehyung Kim curiously asked him, "Are you sure you really want to conquer the labyrinth? In the past 30 years, no one has been able to conquer this dungeon. If no special measures are taken, this conquest won't be easy." But Secretary Kim indicated he shouldn't worry, because those participating in the conquest were at least B-rank veterans. They could easily eliminate monsters. And the Vice Guild leader is using perception skills to help us clear all the traps in the labyrinth. We even found clues about the labyrinth several months ago. In the depths of the abyss, we discovered monsters that seemed to have come from the labyrinth. The marks on its body were identical to the labyrinth marks. When we touched it, everything except the bull horns turned to dust. And this means they could use tracking skills to find the path leading to the interior of the labyrinth. Moments later, under the Vice Guild leader's leadership, everyone reached the end of the labyrinth. A huge minotaur statue stood before their eyes. Is it necessary to install the broken horn? Then Gang Hyuk-won signaled Secretary Kim to bring over the broken horn. So far, everything happening here is exactly the same as before the return. The raid team found the end of the labyrinth and used the minotaur's broken horn. But after that, something bad happened. At the same time, the guild leader immediately installed the broken horn. The next second, the statue slowly dissipated, then turned into white bones. When they came to their senses, they found themselves in an unfamiliar environment. So it was activated after all. A teleportation trap. Meanwhile, the vice president of the malignant guild, Shadow, received information. Did Taehyung Kim also join the labyrinth exploration team? Indeed, what should we do now? As soon as you give the order, I'll immediately stop the battle plan. But Shadow refused. There are 5 S-rank demons who have infiltrated the exploration team. Counting the A-rank demons, there are 20. No matter how capable Taehyung Kim and Gang Hyuk-won are, their abilities are limited. Don't you want to see how they die? On the other side, Miranda was introducing herself to everyone. But the next second, Taehyung Kim suddenly kicked her flying. Stop spouting nonsense, damn demon. Her true identity was the S-rank demon Milena. Now B-rank player Sang-Hoo Park felt like the sky was falling. He had thought Taehyung Kim, like the guild leader, was a respectable figure. But he never expected him to attack his own teammate. You don't need to worry, she's a demon. However, he couldn't listen to Taehyung Kim's words. Then he pulled out a weapon and attacked Taehyung Kim, just as he was about to help Milena up. The next second, she suddenly threw a punch that hit him hard in the face. Disgusting pig, how dare you touch me? At the same time, 2 demons attacked Taehyung Kim first, but he dodged with a flash step. And he was surprised. I didn't expect there to be 3 demons. If I had known, I would have remembered the names of those extras. Now, Milena asked puzzledly, I've been hiding in the guild for so many years without being discovered. How did you discover me? And Taehyung Kim calmly answered, don't worry, your acting had no problems, but I'm a person who has traveled from the future. But obviously she didn't believe Taehyung Kim's words. I heard you get along well with Young Yu. Did Nightwalker discover something? But it doesn't matter anyway, because you must die here today. Now facing the continuous attacks from the 3, Taehyung Kim dodged with ease, then used the chain skill to severely injure 2 of them. At the same time, Milena's claw attack came straight at him, so he quickly swung his sword to block it. Now Milena was extremely shocked, because her witch's claw would emit toxins that cause abnormal status effects. However, this seemed to have no effect on Taehyung Kim. Just then, Taehyung Kim suddenly used Zeal of the Night Lord. Unfortunately, your toxins don't work on me. The next second, an invisible force instantly acted on her, immediately pressing her so she couldn't move. Then Taehyung Kim used his complete hypnosis skill on her. How many of you are infiltrating the team? Quickly state your purpose for infiltrating. The infiltrators include a total of 20 people, including 5 S-rank. Our purpose is to prevent you from successfully conquering the labyrinth, and to eliminate guild leader Gang Hyuk-won. Now Taehyung Kim fell into thought. 5 S-rank demons? But I remember there were only 3 before the return. Just like the teleportation gate that time, the future is gradually changing. Is it because of me? Now that we know their purpose, let's go meet up with player Gang Guan. Although it looks like a completely different space, this is ultimately part of the labyrinth. Then there must be a passage connecting other spaces somewhere. Because the passage connects countless spaces, we can't immediately reach our destination. But as long as we keep passing through the passages, we will definitely encounter player Gang Guan. At this time, Songhu Park raised his confusion. Since you knew about this already, why didn't you announce it to everyone earlier? I already said it, believe it or not. But Gang Guan knows about this. On the other side, facing the Vice Guild leader's betrayal, the guild leader still had an expression of disbelief. But when they were about to attack the secretary, he quickly stood in front of her. At the same time, everyone activated their abilities to attack the guild leader. Seeing this, Gang Guan immediately erupted with magic power. The next second, the T-Rex attack form appeared before everyone. With just one strike, he sent them flying. Stay put, you're no match for those guys. Just then, the Vice Guild leader's voice sounded, Gang Guan, you're already struggling to take care of yourself. I've been hiding my strength all along. Among everyone present, at least 4 are S rank. The rest are all A rank. We came here to eliminate you, the elite members of the Malignant Guild, here to kill you. It seems you've prepared quite thoroughly. I didn't expect I would misjudge. This is a plan our Malignant Guild has prepared for many years. How could you possibly detect it? At this moment, Gang Guan suddenly revealed a smile. Damn, that guy Taehyun Kim was right. You are all demons and even came here to eliminate me. Hearing this, the Vice Guild leader was extremely shocked. He actually knows our plan. But more than that, why did he tell you everything, yet you didn't take any precautions? As a guild leader, how could I easily believe something without evidence? At the same time, the Vice Guild leader suddenly attacked the guild leader. But Gang Guan looked very helpless. I just said I wouldn't doubt teammates, but that doesn't mean I'll just take a beating. With an extremely fierce punch from Gang Guan, he sent the Vice Guild leader flying tens of meters away. Blessing of the beast's form, old dragon. Just after Gang Guan knocked out the Vice Guild leader with one punch, he recalled Taehyun Kim's words. I've already told you all the information, yet you still won't eliminate them? And he responded, you don't think my strength is just what you've seen, do you? Rest assured, I only said I would trust teammates, but that doesn't mean I'll just take a beating. At the same time, Taehyun Kim and Songhu Park finally arrived before them. So what do you plan to do next? What else can we do? We can only retreat for now. There might be other demons here, and we've reached the end of the labyrinth but still haven't seen the labyrinth boss. It's a bit frustrating, but before suffering greater losses, we can only aim to leave here safely. Sorry, Taehyun Kim. If I had listened to your advice, this wouldn't have happened. Just make sure you remember. Although we didn't get contribution points and wasted time, this is the most correct choice. After all, his information about the labyrinth conquest was very fragmentary. If more changes occurred to the future here, who knows what variables would appear. At this time, the secretary suddenly asked, are there no monsters or traps in the other spaces? Hearing this, Taehyun Kim suddenly felt a jolt in his heart. If it were an ordinary space transfer trap, the transferred spaces should be full of traps and monsters. But they had only walked through various spaces that posed no threat to players. If there were no monsters and traps, then how did Gang Guan encounter the labyrinth boss before the return? As everyone was thinking, a huge black shadow suddenly appeared in the sky before everyone. Final boss of the Minotaur's labyrinth, Grand Minotaur Queen rank, Splus. Could this be the labyrinth boss? Why did it appear at this time? Everyone was extremely shocked. The next second, it suddenly attacked everyone. Seeing this, Taehyun Kim and Gang Guan decisively used their abilities to attack it. Just then, a strong light erupted from the staff in the boss's hand. Then a huge Minotaur skeleton appeared beneath them, revived by the Minotaur Queen's powers, Tor King, rank S. Now both of them were stunned. How did another S-rank monster appear at this time? At the same time, countless Minotaur beasts rose from the ground. Then a voice sounded, those who wander in our labyrinth, those who disturb our sleep. Don't worry, come in. Your hostility and malice, I will bear it all. Now facing the encirclement of monsters, the guild leader struck first with full force. The powerful impact instantly shattered the Minotaur beasts. At the same time, Taehyun Kim used chain skills for support. The next second, the guild leader gathered magic in his mouth. Then a dragon's breath went straight for the monsters. In no time, all monsters were burned to ashes. Just when the two thought they had completely eliminated them, they now showed expressions of extreme shock, because the Minotaur beasts actually possessed amazing regenerative abilities.